Okay, the meeting of the Design Review Committee for the month of July is called to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Member Cully?
Here.
Member Deputy?
Here.
Member Dryden Hess?
Here.
Member Jacobson Bates?
Here.
Chair Kavanaugh?
Here. Member Bates, you weren't here last time. Would you please, good deeds will not go unpunished. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Getting to, oh, I just picked that up over there. There's nothing. Going to the consent agenda portion of our agenda. Want to make, I think there are two particularly significant items on the agenda, and we want to make sure there's a full discussion and opportunity for others to comment on it, and I think we're going to try to keep the discussion moving. I'm not sure how long the rest of the agenda is, but the two items in particular are likely to take some time, so we'll keep it moving, but not at the sacrifice of making sure we have a fulsome discussion of the issues among ourselves and give people an opportunity to participate as well. I appreciate the staff moving the two largest development projects, the deli and the Mission Hotel, to the end of the meeting for the convenience of other applicants. So that's happened, and we appreciate that. Depending on how it goes, I will try to have a break after we finish item 5A, which relates to the First Avenue proposals, I guess, for the two-story single-family dwellings at 1621 Fir, if that's okay. Any disagreement with that schedule? So we'll try to move that, and then looking at the last two items after a break about, at that point, hopefully about 6:15, 6:30. Anything else on the agenda as presented for this meeting that, any other items or comments, suggestions, whatever? I'm sure in a position to accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I would set a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Okay?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I'll just go ahead with the voice vote on this. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And the motion's approved. Also, the final consent item in the, before us relates to the Planning and Building Division's current projects for July 2022. That's on pages 8, 9, 10, and 11. Are there any comments regarding that? Oh, what did I skip? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to the minutes instead. Approve the minutes of the meeting of June 16th. Any discussion regarding that?
I had just one
Yeah.
spelling error, which was under 5A, the discussion about the park, not about the park building, but about the Fir Avenue property. It says park building is in PARK as opposed to PARC. I don't know if
Oh, okay,
that
yeah,
matters, but
very good. So that should be PAR, is it capital P, capital A, capital R, small c,
Small c,
okay.
yeah.
Seems like that's the convention, okay. One comment I had, so let's make that change, but one comment I had relates to the craft house colors At the top of page 6, it says the DRC took no action at this time. And I guess that, I think technically we did. What we did decide to do, and I think that's actually reflected on page 27, which is, I think, the report of the staff. Let me see what I'm looking at here. Oh, we tabled the item and set up a subcommittee. So, I mean, there was no final action that we took for sure, but we did take some action, that's also, that we
did,
didn't just
yes. We'll make
have a
that correction.
discussion and then it seemed like we just let it drop. But what we did do, and if you look at the write-up of the staff, it's obviously accurate, but it's, we did move to table the discussion and then set up a subcommittee to meet with the applicant, I believe, and come to an agreement, which I understand has occurred. We'll look forward to that.
I believe, Chair, actually, you had approved the project with everything except for the colors, and you deferred the colors to
Okay.
another meeting.
That's probably more accurate. I think that's, is that, I'm not sure if that
But
it
why don't
probably is
we-
so, because I think that was the one issue that was hung up.
I would suggest that let us just bring these minutes back at the next meeting, make sure we have a very accurate record on that.
Okay, I mean, that's just in terms of the minutes, it just that, saying we took no action, I think was not quite right. Let's see, I've got another, okay, so are we, we need to approve the minutes then, is that right?
Do you have to table it? I think you're tabling that
I
item.
was suggesting that we table it, and we will just double check, because my recollection is that
Okay.
there was a motion that failed, and then motion came back, and you approved everything on the project except for the colors, so that it could continue to the planning
Okay,
commission.
I just wanted, just a small little nit, really, but want to make sure it's accurate, that's all. I don't want to say that we didn't do anything, and then there, on page 27 in the materials, it suggests that something else happened. Okay. So with that
Does that need a
understanding,
Does that require a motion?
well, the
No, you
approval
can-
of the
you-
minutes is
you can
presented
just-
with that.
You can just table it, so
Yeah.
we'll bring it back at the
Okay,
next one. Just
table
take
this.
no action now.
Okay. Table the approval of the minutes?
Correct.
Okay. Then then we'll go back to the Planning and Building Committee division projects for July 19, or 2022. Are there any comments of that?
I had just a couple quick comments.
Yep.
I noticed that the project on 539 Alisal Road, it's page 9, is moving forward. It's great to see that project, which has been a long time coming. I also noticed that it's very evident that work's going on because the road is impacted for quite a ways with dirt, so I hope that there's better procedures in place to mitigate that, because you could see it leading from the site all the way down outside of town. And I was curious too about what's happening on page 11, the 1655 Mission Drive, the directory sign. So when directory signs are approved, do they have like a 6-month period? How long do they have to move forward with them under the approval? I just don't know that's the one that's kind of over by Brecky's, by Domino's Pizza and all, in that little area across from the park.
The approval is for 6 months, and I spoke with Vern Madsen a couple of weeks ago, and he said that something should get installed this month. He has to come back to town and wanted them to wait until he was here to be able to look it over.
Good, just
Yeah.
general information that's good to know. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay?
And in response to the one comment in regards to the construction work that's happening at 1539 Alisal, the city did notice and receive some comments in regards to the trail of dirt leaving the site. It's been cleaned up, or it's being monitored, and both Public Works and our contract stormwater protection plan person is monitoring it.
Okay.
I had a feeling once it happened that one time, that was gonna be, you know,
Yeah, that's the way
They
I go
knew how
home, and
not-
they
not
are
to
there
do
with a broom and everything else,
Yeah.
to mitigate that. One question I had, I mean, I guess it's sort of another nit on my behalf. This is on number 8, Park Place houses. And we're going to be talking about that later, I guess. And those are the houses at 1621 Fur Avenue, right? And I know that they are owned by the same people that own the Park Place. I guess I'm a little uncomfortable calling Park Place, since Park Place is in the TRC and Fur is not, and these Fur properties are not. It's just it's a little confusing, because it seems like, you know, I don't want people to think that and there was some confusion about it earlier, that the Park Place building is subject to the TRC requirements, and those include the requirements to have the Danish design. If the Fur properties are outside that, they're in that DR 20 listing, and obviously there's a connection with the same owner, but they are not subject to the design, to the Danish historical design standards that are required. We talked about that during the meeting. I know there's been some confusion, because I monitored the planning commission, and Aaron's here. There was some confusion about whether we thought, or I thought, that the design review committee had the authority to approve the design of the buildings on Fur, the proposed 3 houses. We do have the authority and responsibilities to do that. And I may have misspoken, I'm not sure, but what I meant to say and thought I said was that we have an obligation to approve the design. We do not apply the historic, traditional Danish standards to that area. We cannot do that. In fact, again, the design standards in the city code suggest that if you're not in the TRC, something other than the Danish design standards are to apply. And I just want to be sure that there's no misunderstanding about that. So I wanted to, the PRC place is I hope that's a conclusion, or clarifies that, because I think there was some misunderstanding of what I said, or what I thought I said. And I think that will, hopefully that will address that. Also, the cottages on Old Mission are on the agenda today, and this sheet doesn't say that.
Yes, we realized that when we
Okay.
were preparing for this meeting.
The other thing I have is, what's the status of the third of the 3 proposed properties off Laurel? I mean, is that something we're going to bring up here, or is that because it's not on this item?
The applicant has been working with the adjacent property owner for
Okay.
the one house, and we understand that there has been an agreement.
Okay,
And it will be on the next agenda.
okay, great. That's perfect. That's all I need to know. So I don't think there's any action necessary with regard to this is your document. It's just, I'm providing some comment on a couple items, is all. Okay, any other questions or comments about that? Okay. Are there any public comments or public communications? Is anyone here in the room on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, is there anyone in online that has any items or any communication for the DRC regarding items that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the sign approval application relating to Chomp at 1693 Copenhagen Avenue. Sophia? You have a report there review the staff
Yes, sir.
report, please.
Good evening, everyone. This item is to review and approve the proposed changes to the height and the illumination for the ground sign for Chomp Burgers, Fries, Shakes at 1693 Mission Drive. The sign was approved in 2013, and the applicant is wanting to raise the height of the sign to 5.5 feet. The code allows for ground signs to be up to 6.5 feet in height. And they are also wanting to change the illumination to one that the planning division believes adheres to the code section on exterior lights. So our recommendation is approving the requested changes.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Does anybody in the room want to make any comments about it? No? Okay. Any comments from the members of the committee?
I do have a comment, but I don't want to go first.
I have a question about the lighting, and maybe I missed it, but I don't remember it saying it was dark sky compliant. I mean, I'm assuming it's underneath, so it's shining down, it probably is, but I didn't see that specified.
How I worded it in the staff report was that the light is top-mounted fixture that shines light downward to prevent it going above the horizontal, which
Right, which is
essentially, is dark
that,
sky
okay.
compliant.
And is there not a Kelvin brightness as well that falls under that temperature? Thank you, yeah, like, for dark sky compliant, or as long as it's shining down, it doesn't matter.
I'll have to look at the code to see what it says regarding that.
I think that maybe we just,
Yeah.
if it moves forward, that it would be that the light be dark
Be
sky
dark sky
compliant.
compliant, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for the applicant for consideration. It isn't regarding the height of the sign, because I understand that is within compliance, but rather the location of the sign and the planter, and how that planter isn't really utilized space, and there's very narrow walkways around it. And wondering if there's a way that that sign could be placed in less of a planter. How's that for definition?
Assume this is on. Hi, everybody. Aaron Peterson, owner of Chomp. The ground sign has to be in a planter by code. It can be 6'6" in height. It has to be 75 feet away from another ground sign, and I have to have 50 foot of frontage. So the Denmark Square sign, we're further than 75 feet away. And so it's in that planter. That all happened when the city and us did the brick sidewalks out in front. And so we were there, and then they came in and we got all that brick sidewalk and things. Our property goes within 5 feet of the curb, so I've got about 15 extra feet of private property in there. But it has to be in that planter. I mean, I'd have to jackhammer up, move bricks to move it somewhere else.
I didn't actually
No?
mean to move it. I meant that could you put another row of bricks around the planter, making the planter a little bit smaller, so that especially the walkway between the building and the sign was a little wider, thinking of two-way traffic or wheelchairs, strollers, that kind of thing. So not that you move it, but rather
Right.
that, and I don't know what the code is on planters, so I mean, this could be all a moot point, but in going by and looking at it, it seemed as though there could be potentially another layer of brick around the outside of the planter, kind of, and making it a little bit smaller planter and a little bit wider walkways.
Sign almost goes all the way from planter edge to
Okay.
planter edge. We wanted it low and long, and, we can only do 30 square feet, so we did it low and long to do that. But that, again, between the building and the sign, there's 6 feet, plus another 8 feet of sidewalk on the other side. I mean, it's a huge area if you walk it, and people don't walk east and west and go around the sign and back out. There's a dead end. It's into the patio, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting that you've just informed me of is that that is your private property as opposed to city property there too.
Yeah.
So that's,
Correct.
I
So,
don't,
so we kept it back off public property by 2 feet
And-
when we did it.
Jennifer, I don't know if you have comments that,
Yeah, no, my thought was just wondering if you could make it a little shorter. I feel like women are around my height, 5'6", so we won't be able to see over it, like past the sign. And so I like being able to walk down the street and see beyond it. So I just was curious if you had any leeway in that at all.
So I'm at 5'6". What would you
Like
suggest?
between 4'6" and 5'6".
So 5 foot, sold.
Yeah.
I don't care that much. I mean, I do, but I don't. It's our plants. We have the planters out around our patio, and they've just gotten bigger because I have partners in this business now, which is my daughter and my son-in-law. And so they like these succulents getting bigger and bigger, which is great. But I said, man, guys, maybe we could raise the sign. They said, can't we? And I said, well, sure, let's go to 5'6". In fact, staff had reminded me, Sophia, Aaron, you can go to 6'6". I said, I don't want to go 6'6". She wasn't pushing me. She just said, did you read it wrong? And I said, no, 5'6" is good. 5 feet is fine with me, truly.
I'm fine with 5
Yeah.
feet. That's okay.
I like that suggestion.
I'm easy.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Aaron. I
I'm
appreciate
5'4".
that.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it
Same,
from
I
that
wouldn't-
perspective since
Yeah.
I don't
You're
have
taller.
to see over
You're
it.
Take it
taller.
from
I
us
think
short
that's-
people.
Yeah, I think that's a.
Do you have a
and
motion?
keeping that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm
visual-
sorry,
No,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keeping the visual corridor open. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would motion to approve this sign at 5 feet.
I would second that.
Been moved and seconded that the application be approved with modification of the height from 5'6" to 6 feet, or 5'6" to 5 feet, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the cottages at Old Mission Drive. And I remember when that was presented to the bar 4 years ago, I think, or whatever, when they were first, when the design was first set up.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're moving right along. Obviously, none of them are occupied yet, I guess, but they're close
No.
to completion.
Patrick, before you
Yeah.
Yeah,
before you go on, I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
Okay?
And I need to as well.
Okay? Let's hope that the rest of us agree.
Good evening, Lori Tamuro, contract planner, and we're bringing this item before you as one of the final reviews of this project. As noted, the applicant is completing their construction. There's a number of final items before the city will issue occupancy permit, and one of them is landscaping. And so tonight, we're here to review the landscaping plan along Old Mission Drive. The applicant, as noted in the staff report, the project has been reviewed by the Board of Architecture Review as well as Planning Division. And we had an issue with putting up a fence along Old Mission Drive to address two items. First of all, people walking on the sidewalk had direct line of sight into the windows of the homes. And there was also a steep slope between the sidewalk and going down to the homes. So we worked out a fencing plan. We did also have to coordinate with the fire department because they still needed access to that side of the building. So you will see gates working their way into walkways down to the homes. The fence, what we've asked the applicant to do is bring forth a landscaping plan for both the interior of the property as well as exterior along Old Mission Drive. And then we bring it forward to the DRC for review and approval. The landscaping plan does incorporate drought-tolerant landscaping. What we did provide to you, I believe you have them up there. The applicant put together a time sequence for how the plants would look over time. Oh. And so, you got these items?
Okay, I've got it, yeah, I've got it.
And so in the plants evolve, it'll pretty much screen out the fence and actually start to screen out the roof line that's over there. So we're here tonight asking that recommend that the DRC approve the landscaping that's being proposed along the frontage of Old Mission Drive.
Okay.
Lori, do I understand that the fence is already approved? I misunderstood
Yes,
something.
the fence was approved by staff.
Okay.
And
in.
because,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and,
mean, obviously, you see the pictures, but it's been in for a
Right.
while.
yeah.
Right.
I was surprised by the 6-foot height. That was the,
it was addressing the visual into the units from people along the street.
That's a fairly, I know I use it, it's a fairly busy pedestrian walkway from north Solvang to downtown. Yeah, it's very common.
And the landscaping will help soften the wall or the fence, and I think will make that a much nicer walkway. And the applicant's representatives are here also.
Okay. You said the applicant consulted with the fire department. I assume does the fire department, like, they explicitly sign off then on the design, or is it just an oral communique that says, we don't have any objection?
For all houses or structures, the fire department is one of the final clearing items.
Okay, so they have a
And-
signature or something
Yes.
somewhere that's,
Yes.
says that this is acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay,
And, building department, stormwater, public works, utilities, fire department, all sign off
Okay.
before they get occupancy planning
Okay.
signs off, as well as the finance department.
right. Okay, are there,
I think that
yeah, we have a,
it seems as though there's a great selection of plants that are appropriate for our environment, that'll grow nicely there. I'm glad to see that it is the applicant and the consequential owner's responsibility to maintain them in that space. I'm a little curious how a metal fence works when it's 100 outside and plants rub against it, but that is already done, so, and again, the plan will be a lovely screen as time goes on, so.
right, I don't have any comments. Is there someone's here from the
Correct.
project? Anything who's here from the project? If you have anything, would you have anything to say? Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. Any other, Brian, any comments?
No, other than, so sorry. I didn't see where it was documented what plants they were, and is that somewhere in the report? Oh, it's on there.
Yeah.
I get it, okay. I mean, plan-wise, it's fine. I will look forward to seeing those plants
Grow fast.
grow, and according to this, in 10 or 15 years, well, actually, 5 to 7 years, it'll be nice, so.
Yeah, I have a recollection, again, from 3 or 4 years ago, when I was on the Board of Architecture Review, that we reviewed this, and the landscape design submitted at that time was extensive like this is. I honestly don't have a recollection about what those plans, how those plans reflected the issue around the fencing in the back. Was there any proposal for fencing at the time?
Could you clarify what you mean by in the back? I'm not sure.
Well,
I
I mean,
understand.
by in the back, I mean along the street, along,
Old Mill,
I
Oh,
call that in the back, I guess, but it's.
no,
it's-
that's fine. It's technically the front door, which is.
Yeah, I mean, it's
part of it.
the side opposite the driveway.
Yes, okay. And so you want to know what changed as far as,
Well, from what was approved then, I can't remember what accommodation was for the need for a fence in the plans
there
presented
wasn't
4
a
years
fence
ago.
proposed in that area, in that location. However, the plants, some of the plants, in fact, almost all of the plants that are used on the outward side, the old Mission side of the fence, are actually taken from the pallet that was
Yeah.
there. I think I introduced one new plant.
Okay.
And of those, I pulled, they were, each yard, each lot is themed.
Right.
So it has a slightly distinctive look and feel to it that's tied to the architecture, actually. And what happened was I just pulled those plants and I pulled some of the big ones up, and I didn't change the quantities.
Yeah.
It has exactly the same quantities as the previous plant.
But there was a fence of some sort, but not like this one, is that?
I don't believe
There
there was a
there
fence.
wasn't a fence?
There was
no
not a
fence
fence.
Okay,
proposed
that's
at
fine.
that
That
time.
was the answer to my question.
Okay.
But you did this 4 years ago for
I
the.
did.
Yeah, and it was a great job, because I think it's
Thank
a
you.
really terrific, landscape architect design, and I could tell that, the same person had done it because of the materials used and the presentation. So you've asked my question. You've answered it. Thank you.
Is there any other questions while I'm right here? Okay.
No?
Thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions?
Not for me?
nope,
If not, I will entertain a motion regarding this.
looks like public.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I missed you. Please come forward. I didn't see you. I apologize.
That's okay. I'm sitting down. My name is Gabe Rossetti. I'm a resident of Old Mission Drive. My wife and I have owned a home there for 13 years.
Okay?
And we've lived with this project now for 4.5 years. And we have lived with nothing but 4 years of trucks, dirt, streets that are dug up. The street was sealed, and now it looks like a dried up riverbed. We had broken gas pipes. We had busted concrete. We have had, I Rod from, I think it was Lone Star, they were awful. I removed that much dirt out of my gutters one fall after they were done. So we've had to endure this project. Having said that, I think it's a really good project. I think it's wonderful that there are homes there. There's an improvement. There's a sidewalk, and that's great. But that fence is horrible. That fence, I was thinking about it today, it looks industrial. I think it looks more like a border wall. You know, if you look in between the houses, it's beautiful wood fence in between the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't the neighborhood get something to look at like that? I don't understand it. I understand why they did it. It's instant gratification. Well, those plants are gonna take longer than 7 years to grow. And you know, and you said it, that metal, the heat is gonna radiate off that metal. Those plants are gonna fry. Nothing is gonna grow there. They're gonna have to water drought-tolerant plants. It won't grow. So we're left with looking at a border wall for 10 years. What I'd like to see is some way to mitigate what's already been done. They could very easily take some of the wood that they have in the back, rip it, just to soften the look. Rip it where the metal joins at the post, put something up there. Have it look more like a fence than a wall. Then take that metal across the top and run it across the top. Now it looks like a fence instead of something that should be in an industrial park. It baffles me. There's not a neighborhood in Solvang that has a fence that looks like that. And after what we've had to endure, that would be the least that they could do. My next question is, who enforces that that landscape is maintained and lives. We went through the same thing with the Mercantile, and I was here, I don't know how many meetings. I have emails from Josh Richmond, how many trees he's gonna put in. He didn't put them in. And when he put them in, they've died, and they've not been replaced. So who is going to enforce that that thing doesn't look like a border wall for the next 25 years? The neighbor, you all wouldn't want to look at that wall. I can guarantee it.
I walk by there, and I know the fence, and I understand your comments and the look of it. And it'd be,
It's terrible.
yeah, I'd appreciate the reaction of that, of the selection of the fence and why that material, and any response that the owner has regarding the suggestions made. And then also, perhaps from city manager, some remarks about the enforcement of the requirements that are found when we go through this process and raise our hands and think we've approved something. How does that enforcement go? But go ahead, please.
Thank you. Also, I canvassed everybody in the neighborhood today. There's not a single person that likes that. Every person says the only thing it does is we can't look in their windows. The same thing could have been accomplished with wood. Why rust is a hip thing in a neighborhood baffles me. You put all that money in those homes, and you put something up like that, that's egregious.
I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have some response to that, about the selection of the material that's there, and if there's ways to abate, to mitigate that in response to the neighbors?
Brian Nelson, project architect. Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Yes.
The fence is going to rust, so it's not going to have the shininess that it does now in parts of it. You can already see a lot of it rusting. And then the plants will mitigate the bareness of it. We do have posts at the gates with a header above it, so it does break it up as we go along.
Okay. But was there consideration of wood instead, or just, obviously it's going to be there a long time, obviously, with the material it's made of now? Is it just steel fence? Is that what it's made of?
Yes.
Yeah. Any comments?
My concern is the fence more than the landscaping. My interpretation of our responsibilities and our options this evening are that we don't have an option on the fence. If there was an option on the fence, you would be hearing more comments from me.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm sorry, just to clarify to staff, is that the case that we can't say anything about the fence?
The action in front of you is only regarding the landscaping, yes. The fence was approved at staff level and it's been constructed.
Okay.
The landscaping is in front of you today based on basically my request.
Then one more question. I don't know who I ask it to necessarily, but I think the resident came up with some interesting solutions that maybe, since our group can't force any action on it, but because, as you said, sort of the entire neighborhood is, upset by it. I mean, I think personally, and it's not my opinion that matters, but it's not an attractive fence at all. But if the neighbors would feel better and everyone, could kind of at least say, well, we gave a little and they gave a little, to do something like add wood in a header or something. I suppose all I can do is just make the comment that it is really awful looking. Sorry, I mean, that was strong, but if there was something to be done between, project person and residents, I would hope that maybe that could be the case, so.
I echo that and Brian's sentiments about the fence. As I said, those were my concerns, the aesthetic, the material, the height. Yes, the landscape will soften it. I am concerned about the health of the landscaping, and I am interested in how that is supervised. I'm not sure if that's the right word, to make sure that that does grow there, given the fact that we're all cutting back water, and it, steel fence or metal fence will most likely necessitate increased water on the plants, no matter what's planted there. It seems counterintuitive. And I'd like to encourage the applicant to, while they're moving forward with the landscaping, that they also consider the comments from the neighbors and work with them to see if there's a solution that could be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
Well said.
I agree. Well said, and I
Maybe
agree with the
check.
sentiment. The scope of our review tonight, unfortunately, is limited, as I understand it, to the plantings and the landscape architecture, which I complimented. But the fence itself is pretty rugged. I was surprised when I see, because I take that route a lot. I know there's a space there, what's 3 feet wide or something like that, for the plant materials to be on the outside to soften the fence, but it is a 6-foot steel fence. And someone said it looked like a border fence. And, to the extent it's possible to be responsive to the neighbors for the concerns they have, we strongly recommend that. And if there's any way that staff can be helpful in coming up with suggestions that aren't onerous or, they may, yeah, what's that? Okay, fine. Then that would be acceptable. Who raised?
There's hand on Zoom, there's
Oh,
another
I
public
see.
comment.
I see. Scott?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my first question would be then, who on staff approved this fence? And did that individual or group of individuals have the authority, considering, the extent or the effect that it has on the overall look of the project?
Okay. Yeah. Senior?
Would you like me to
Yeah,
respond
please.
to that? Just a reminder that public comment should be comment versus a discussion back and forth, but I will provide
Okay,
some
that's fair
some
enough. But
information on it.
it's a fair question.
Yes, my understanding is that the communication was between our planning consultant and the project manager. It is within the way that the project was approved originally, it is within staff's capacity to approve.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then my next comment, I will echo some of the comments that have been made before this. Yes, it does look, like an auto parts lot in North Hollywood with that fencing, and it is unsightly. And we would suggest that, some sort of paint be applied or something of that nature, along with some fast-growing hedges or something of that nature that's going to be, that's going to grow and cover it up sooner than, the suggested 5 to 7 years, which, is not guaranteed.
Fair enough. Thank you, Scott. Anything else then, Scott?
No, I believe that's it. I
Okay.
believe the other tenant or the other residents of my street gave a pretty sufficient
Okay.
analysis. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, please, Lori.
So one of the questions that came up through this discussion was maintenance of the landscaping and the fence and care of that area.
Yes.
We are working with the applicant right now on their CCNRs. There will be a homeowners association for this property. There's quite a bit of shared amenities, particularly their driveway, their drainage features, the landscaping, and this frontage will be part of an HOA, and
Okay.
they'll all be contributing to the maintenance of this area.
Okay. That's part of the answer, I guess, to to your comment earlier, so that's, I appreciate that. I think it's clear that there are some, that we members have some reservations about what the design is. It's just, right now, it's outside our scope to address that, but there's been some good suggestions, and I hope that there'll be some work with the city's help on doing and mitigating the issues around the unsightliness of the fence, and make it a nice community. It's a great little addition. It's, you've used the area well. The designs are great. I like the difference. They're not just, boxes on the hillside. They're each house has its own character, but they don't clash with the others. You've done all that well, but I share others' surprise about when I saw the fence for the first time, that it couldn't have been, it has to have a function, and that it could have been better. So-
And honestly, we wouldn't have a clue that there's variation because the fence is the same. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the landscaping plan with the strong encouragement for fast-growing plants as can be arranged, and working with the neighborhood to mitigate the impacts of the fence to the best of your abilities.
Second?
I will second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve with the admonitions expressed, and the request to the city staff to help facilitate the mitigations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Thank you for your time and bringing this matter to our attention.
Thank you.
Oh, I love my cup.
Okay.
Oh, nice. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
yeah.
Sophia, these are great.
It changes color, so you click it 3 times and it changes like the softness or the brightness.
Oh, you darn. So what's neutral? I guess there's some.
Yeah, these have to be returned to the staff after the meeting.
Well, I may have to take this home to study. That's really cool.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda relates to the proposal on the proposed colors of the exterior of the building, the umbrellas, exterior lighting for the craft house at Cork at 420 Alisal.
I'm also going to recuse myself from this one as well.
Okay?
Sorry.
Dinner time.
Yes, so this item is to review and approve the proposed colors for the exterior of the building, umbrellas, and exterior lighting for Craft House at Cork at 420 Alisal Road. So at the last meeting, the item was tabled so that a subcommittee could meet with the applicant, who's here tonight, to talk about particularly a color contrast to what had been painted on the building, or alternative colors to what had been painted. And so in between the meetings, the subcommittee was able to meet with the applicant and decided on a darker gray color to paint the pergola. I have provided the color chip to you, as well as photos of the painted pergola. In addition to that, I don't believe the other items were approved at the last meeting. I think the
Oh, I
entire
see it.
item was tabled for the
Right.
subcommittee
Okay, I
to be able
understand.
to meet. So we're also asking for consideration on the umbrellas and the exterior lighting. So the umbrellas, It's asking for approval to have 15 gray umbrellas on the front patio, which is where the pergola that you're considering is, and then 5 on the private patio between the restaurant and hotel. And those are a darker gray color. They don't have any logos or writing on them. And then with the exterior lighting, they have string lights on the pergola that we believe adhere to the exterior light ordinance or section of the code, in that they are highlighting the upper portion
Okay,
of the
I
pergola.
mean, we had a question, because I think there, I looked at some provision, I guess, as I recall our discussion, where it says no string lights or something, and this is, these are, so this is a provision now that you believe
Yes.
brings those into, they are compliant
So
after all.
There
that right?
is, so section 11, 12, 18A3, I'll read it for y'all. Says year-round low lumen lights, parentheses, strings, illuminating buildings, architectural features, trees, and other permanent landscape feature lighting in the city's village area shall be exempt from the requirements of this subsection.
Okay,
I think there's some ambiguity there, because it was really intended mainly for the little white lights on the trees and the buildings, so,
oh, okay,
that, you know, so it's a little hard to interpret.
I see, sure,
It's one of those things that needs to be, needs clarity.
okay. So you're saying, though, that that provision she's talking about relates to the strings that are, decorate the
Yeah, I
trees
don't-
down by the park or
I
whatever?
don't really think there is much of provision that's distinctly targeted at those overhead lights in that fashion, because they haven't really been used much until more recently, and usually just at the holidays. So it's more of a recent development that I don't think is.
Yeah, I was looking at
completely
another section, but another section, just reading that alone, was pretty clearly,
No.
would render those invalid. With that,
Yes.
there was another provision that I looked at, but I don't have my material from that meeting, I guess, but
And I think
anyway.
even the We Watch group has said that there is an ambiguity here.
Okay.
Because there's not really anything that directly applies to this, rather it was written with a different intent and.
But if that's your
Yes.
advice, I understand, that's a clarification, it's a little
I-
different than we had, yeah.
As Esther said, is it Esther or Esther? Okay, so as Esther said, I did speak with Nancy Emerson, who told me the spirit of the intention of that section, and she agreed that there is ambiguity in it, so,
Okay,
to her point, yes.
But also to clarify that we don't have a night sky compliant ordinance. I know that that's something We Watch very much supports. We do have an ordinance that's very specifically written for solving.
okay, very good.
Sorry, I think we interrupted your presentation there.
No, to wrap that up, we ask that you approve the color changes, the umbrellas, and the exterior lighting.
Okay, any comments?
Well, I'd
Is
like
there
to hear
anyone-
from the
yeah.
subcommittee, too.
Well, Jennifer and I went and talked with Brendan. He was very accommodating, very friendly about the whole thing. And I, in the end, not only looking at pictures, but driving by several times of the day, I thought it looked great. So,
Do you have
that's my only
anything,
comment.
thank you, do you have anything to add? We appreciate your,
Except that I was wrong and they were right. So thank you. I think you did a great job. Thanks for your time, Jennifer. Thank you for your time, Brian. I think it looks a lot better.
Our pleasure.
thanks for you. Jennifer, do you have any comment?
I'm really thankful he said that. No. No, I think it does look better, and the darker color is made everything that I thought it would, so I was really pleased with it. So I like that. I still think the white is very bright, and that is still, but I understand that that's a lot to ask, and that's a hardship. So I backed off on that matter when we were meeting in person, and so, but I'm very happy with the darker tone.
I
Okay.
concur, it's a big improvement. My concerns are the color transitions. So I'm going by today at the kind of the corner where it connects the patio side of the building that faces the patio, and then it's, you know, the completely different color on the side that faces the street of the restaurant. And I'm looking at a page in our packet, which doesn't have a number, it's this one, where the back of the building is the new colors, but the center of the building is the old colors, which I really liked, this one.
It'll be older one color, we just stopped painting when we found out that it wasn't approved. So it'll go for the transition where you're looking at.
Okay,
That will all be continuous.
And that, so you might need to speak to the, yeah, so that people at home can hear.
Thank you. So that was just out of respect for the fact when we found out that we didn't have approval, so we stopped painting, and then there will be continuous, like you're saying, from the back of the building around the side building that's on the fountain patio, it will look the same. So it'll be-
And will that continue right up against the post office building then?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my one concern about the color, is that when you apply your white next to the post office building, I'm not quite sure how that all works, because we're tasked with looking at the project, I'm trying to find the right words, you know, how it fits into the overall site and the buildings around it. So I just don't know how that white against the post office white, you've got two white buildings coming up, and that kind of goes a little bit outside of what we are tasked with doing and applying. And I don't know what color your white is versus the post office white.
Yeah, I mean,
So I don't know if you,
It is a different way. The post office is toned down a little bit.
so,
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was just too far away. Yeah, I mean, we discussed that, and it's, you know, absolute, I mean, something we talk about all the time.
okay.
I have a suggestion, if that is a concern. Is there any opportunity maybe to paint that portion, which is the restaurant face, the light gray that you have on the half timbers, and make the timbers on that section the pergola timber color?
That was
Can I
my
see a
exact
photo?
thought.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was, to go the lighter gray to offset it, because then you'd have a contrast that sets your restaurant apart from the post office. And you wouldn't be worried about two different whites there next to each other.
I mean, obviously, we want to please, I mean, we want to please. I also, you know, part of our issue is we want to make sure that, you know, without being garish, we want to make sure that we're noticed. I mean, it's a large property, and so, you know, I think when we agreed to do the project, that property hasn't been fiscally feasible for a long time.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
we're making a considerable investment, and we're after taking on a large lease commitment, and so we want to make sure that we're actually noticed.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm suggesting that, Brendan, was because you hadn't painted it yet. Otherwise, like I
Right.
said, I would stand by my other
Likewise,
comments.
yeah, likewise, you haven't painted it, and I think that it actually sets it apart from the post office building, because otherwise you've got white post office, white, you know, it's kind of hard to tell where the post office stops and where the restaurant starts, and I think it would actually set you apart and make you more distinctive.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wrong once, there's no reason why I can't be wrong twice, so, yeah, I mean, I'm open to suggestions.
Might it be something where we could task and request that you two, I don't know if there's any need to return, but perhaps you would consider returning to kind of finalize that color, or is it that color already defined within the context of the
The colors
project?
I'm suggesting are already there. So,
Okay.
to not
Yes.
deviate from a new you know,
Right.
not go to a new palette. That was my suggestion, because he's probably got the paint and it's easier, but,
Yeah. I would be in favor of
but
that. I
it's
think it would
still
really
his-
look nice.
It's still his project, so you know.
Yeah. If that's something you would be open to doing, I would ask Jennifer to put that motion forward.
And Jennifer, just to clarify, are you suggesting that we swap the white with the lighter gray, is that correct?
Yeah, that's
So-
right. Just in the front of the building where you want to put the new sign.
So you don't end
The
up
one
with,
that's adjacent to the.
Yeah, I'm just
mill
trying to picture
the-
it.
So I'm picturing it because I think that was my concern too. Remember when we were standing there and I said, I think what you're gonna do when you have your bright white next to the post office white's gonna all of a sudden look really dingy, kind of, and older compared to your bright white, which you just want it to be more complementary, and I think if you go with that gray that you have on the timbers now, and you go with the dark accent on the timbers on that one section, then you'll have a really beautiful, like, sort of complementary building that sets apart from the post office and doesn't look like it is just a mismatch. I'm with Esther on it. I do think it would look better than trying to compete with the post office.
So again, just to clarify, so you're saying gray on gray, or you're saying?
I'm saying gray on gray.
I
Yes.
don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
No, I do not want to do that. I'm going to end up with, so now I'm going to run into a situation where I won't like the mix. I like the dark gray, and so
I don't want you
I'm
to
willing
not
to
like it.
reverse them. If you want me to reverse them, I will, but I don't want to have two different, no.
So you reverse them in terms of,
So if you don't want the white body,
Yeah.
I'll give you the gray body, but we'll give you the white trim.
so he would say white half timbers.
Yeah, but that doesn't complement the other sides of it where they aren't white. So we're trying to make it to kind of be all come together. That, it's a more sophisticated look, I think, with, given your neighborhood that the building's in, with the gray on gray. And it sounds like that's not something that is working for you, and at the same time, I'm concerned about that white within the neighborhood.
Yeah. You know, my view, I'm sort of agnostic about it. But I think, I appreciate your efforts, and to make the changes, to not make it a bright white edifice, and we've got you've done the good work on the pergola and the darker gray there, and matching it, so.
I mean, I think if I'm hearing that we don't want to have so much white, and so
Yeah.
I'm saying, let's reverse them, and we're getting rid of the white, so we don't have the white against the post office, because
Right.
we're concerned that we're going to make the post office look dowdy. So,
Yeah.
but I think,
Yeah, I'm just, then we're back, we're in a circular argument with ourselves about the
Right,
half
the
timbers
white.
being white.
Right.
That's what we're trying to avoid many others in town
Yeah.
from doing. And so if we said yes to you,
Yeah.
we would totally upend what we've been trying to do. So we don't want to do that. That's why we're
stuck. We
Yeah.
can't really
Yeah.
allow that because it doesn't fit with the codes and is something that's been turned down for so many other applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the design requirement, or design standards that we're obliged to follow very explicitly speak to that they are to be dark colored, and they are to be, they're trying to make it look like a wood insert, and that's, I know that you look around town and there have been exceptions to it, but those are not consistent with the design standards that we're obligated to enforce regarding the half timbering, is that right?
Yes.
guess I'm ending up a little confused, and so I guess I'm going to need some more clarification. So I think I'm hearing that we want to eliminate the body of white, and then you're saying you don't want the trim white, is that correct?
The half timbers.
That's right, the
Just
half
like
timber.
No white half timbers.
Well, I'm happy not to have them, leave them gray.
Okay,
Leave them gray, I'm fine with that, let's leave them gray.
There needs to be a contrast, though. That's why we're saying
I'm
dark.
happy to leave it white, so that that they don't look like white.
So the kind of, the transition that we were talking about was being able to paint the body gray, the light gray, paint the half timbers the dark gray, and eliminate the
I
white
think all
on
we
that
care
side.
about, Brendan, that there is a change from white to white next to that post office, because
Correct.
it is going to, it's going to highlight that the post office looks unkempt.
Do you want me to paint the post office? I'm serious. I mean, I'll paint the post office if you want.
That'll take
I don't think
congressional.
that's gonna work, but it just goes to, I was looking for, there shall be harmony of material, color, and compositions on all sides of the structure and building and within adjoining developments. So that's our
And again,
requirement.
with no disrespect, I think we're doing exactly that. We're copying the hotel. And so when it's say with adjoining developments, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yes and no. Yes on the hotel side and no on the, because we have to look at it through the lens of everything around it, even what's across the street. So is there a solution here?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, if you're asking me to paint the building gray, I don't want to paint the building. If it's all gray, I don't want to paint. I like the fact that we got a contrast. We did 3 or 4, maybe 5 different colors. I think when you look at it now, I think.
Are
that-
there any of those other colors on those posts that you would be comfortable having the field be on that one section of that building? Any one of them?
I mean,
Oh, is that
again,
what those,
Any one of them?
is that those posts, the colors at the
Oh,
bottom of
yes,
the post? Oh, I
uh-huh.
took a picture of that.
Oh, of course you
I was
did.
trying to
pull up
figure
my
it out.
Change your settings again.
Say again?
They lost.
Oh.
some of my things.
We're trying to pull up some visuals for you.
Okay.
I only have a couple.
Wait, what are the posts?
Those were the test colors for
These.
the,
See where it's like the.
Oh,
two
oh,
tones?
oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So were there any of those, Brendan, that would be a complementary field color for that section of building that could get us over this hump?
So again, I don't want to come across as being in any way argumentative or rude. However, when we
This is a-
started
this
out,
is a
the
great-
concern, the
yeah.
concern was that the transition from the back of the building to the side of the building was, I would say, somewhat disheveled. And so then when I brought to everybody's attention that we're going to continue it around, so now we're inviting another third palette in. And I think if you look
Yeah.
if you look here, and if you look at the transition from the post office, there is a dark, you're going to note, they won't seem
It's
like.
a shadow line,
They
I
definitely
know.
won't seem contiguous.
No,
If
they
will.
won't.
They will not.
But
And so, if
the
that's.
cream with the white, that cream adjacent to the very white that you painted is not going to be that pleasing, just isn't.
And so I don't disagree, but
Yeah.
if we, let's call that burnt ember.
Okay.
If we paint the burnt ember and we make that the gray that you are asking, the lighter gray, and if we go and we make if we go with the white trim, then I get some continuity from the building is in harmony then, I think.
I think we're tied. Our hands are tied on the white, I feel like.
All right, we'll paint it gray. Paint it gray. Paint it gray, two different shades of gray.
The two grays.
Then you've got a color palette that's consistent with the 3 shades as the, throughout the
Well, I would just
project.
say, if you would prefer to change it to any other tones of gray, we can go, I'll be happy to meet out there and go through that with you rather than forcing you.
Let's
Let's
just
paint
do
it
that.
gray.
Okay, we're going to do it. Okay, let's
Okay.
just do it that way and move it
Yeah.
on. And I'd
Okay,
appreciate your motion.
Okay, I bring a motion to paint the,
You have a public comment?
oh, yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well,
Public comment?
yeah.
We have one on Zoom with a raised
Oh,
hand.
Susan,
Yes,
I know your hand is up.
yes.
Uh,
I'm having computer problems, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, we can't see you yet.
You can't, that's one of the problems.
Okay? We're listening.
I'm speaking for WeWatch, and our concern here, are the spotlights that are on the roof of the building. The side of the building that faces the hotel.
That's this.
Those are not shielded, they're tilted up instead of below the horizontal. And so, technically those are out of compliance with Solvang's lighting codes.
Okay?
And we hope that they will be removed. I hope they aren't necessary. For one thing, they're not necessary since they're not going to be open after 1 p.m., so, at the moment. But I hope that those can be removed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Appreciate your comments. You understand the comment on that? They have the night light issues, and they have, you know, I guess those lights have been there a long time, I'm sure, though.
Yeah, and we're not touching them, so they're existing. We're not making any lighting changes to the exterior of the building.
Okay. The,
Does anyone have any other comments about the lights or the umbrellas? I do not.
No comments? Yeah, seem like
No.
they're a nice compliment.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we're ready.
Yeah, let's go-
Okay.
let's go for the motion, yeah,
So I'll
please.
bring a motion to approve the paint colors of the exterior with the dark gray trellis color that's painted partially today. That color continues on the adjacent building section as the half timber color, and the field of that section, this is the building adjacent to the post office, the field be the light gray that is the half timber color on the restaurant portion that is painted today. I don't have the color references, but using the materials in the exhibit, staff should be able to solve for that. we
And
can
before you
confirm.
vote, I want to make sure that I'm understanding, because I don't want to make a mistake.
Yes.
So you're suggesting that the, let's call it the timber piece, is going to be the dark, is that correct?
That's
Which will-
correct.
Which will be a continuation of the pergola?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Correct.
And then that the body will be the lighter gray? is
That's
it?
right.
Okay, I can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
okay?
So that is my motion, and also to approve the umbrellas as submitted, and also to approve the lighting, the string lights as submitted as well.
Okay?
I second all that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the materials, the exterior lighting, landscaping, architecture, and the umbrellas, with the modification expressed by by Jennifer in her motion. All in favor, say aye.
I,
4-0.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to
Appreciate
seeing it. Joy.
Okay. Again, we're gonna, this is the last item, I think, before we'll take a little break, and then we have two more projects, I think. But first of all, we're gonna conclude this. The next item on the agenda relates to the proposed colors of the three two-story, single-family dwellings at 1621 Fir. And we've reviewed this item before and had a subcommittee. Was it Brian, you and
Esther, yeah.
and Esther?
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
that-
sorry, Jennifer.
No, I was gonna
Or
say.
Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I was sitting next to
Yeah, yeah.
Esther, watching our
That
new
you,
fancy
you,
lights.
so
I
it's
was
our,
there.
it's a,
I was
it's a very
there.
successful and hardworking subcommittee.
I was there.
But that you've,
I was thinking about you.
came with proposals that you had you worked out with the applicant an array of colors that could be used and settled then on, as I understand it, on two of the colors that are on the palette before it. One would be in the middle of the three buildings, and the other one was going to be on building 1 and building 3, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you've worked out there?
Yeah, so we met on the site, and I was,
I'll hold that up.
originally pretty vocal around the grays, and what we determined when we were out there was that we really wanted something that was more blue-gray or green gray versus gray gray, battleship gray. I'm not a fan, and I don't think it's consistent with the neighborhood or what's being done. So we kind of stood out there and felt that these colors in the bright sunlight, and that really helped being out there, that these would be really good looking, and keep with sort of the direction that they would be happier with the modernity of the architecture. So that we gave them the option. of
So
these
units
colors.
A and C are going to be this lead gray,
Yeah,
and then unit B would be the nocturnal gray here,
yeah.
okay?
And so they're really reading as blue in the sun, so.
Okay, and, yeah, I'm glad that there's some variation in the colors, so they're not all just one
look good.
color. We already approved the design of the building, and we're just looking at the color selected, is that right? We approved everything but the colors, subject to the discussions or the work of the subcommittee, which, again, they've done a good job of coming back with us with the proposal.
And just a reminder, this project in the interim has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved, with this one item being the final direction from your committee on the colors.
Okay, great, thanks, Lori, I appreciate that. Yeah, I know that they considered that at their last meeting. Are there any comments about that? No, okay. So, we have a motion?
Oh, open for public comment?
Oh, public comment. Are there any public comments on this fact? I see none in the room, I see none in the Zoom room. So,
So I'll move to approve the colors as presented. Yeah.
Is
Okay.
second?
been moved and seconded to approve the colors as presented for the properties there at, on Fir. All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye, 4-0, 5-0, I'm sorry, 5-0. Yeah, you're back. Okay,
How long are we breaking for, Pat?
10 minutes? Too long? 5 minutes?
yeah. we-
5 minutes.
It's my anniversary, so I'd
Oh.
like to
Oh,
Get moving.
not be here forever tonight.
Happy
so-
anniversary.
where are we going? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
5-minute break?
5
Yeah.
minutes then. Let's just have a 5-minute break. Regarding the development plan for the, what's affectionately called the old lumberyard proposal, 1783 and 1793 Mission Drive. So we'll be adjourned for 5 minutes. Hence the meeting, it's 6:26. Going to consider the development plan conceptual review for the hotel and multifamily mixed-use project at 1783, 1793 Mission Drive. And Lori, would you please review with us the staff report on that?
Good evening. This item is being brought before you by the applicant, Mr. Ed St. George, and this is a new submittal for this property. We've had several iterations presented to both the DRC and the Planning Commission over the last year. This proposal is a downsizing of what was initially proposed. There's several key changes that occurred. One of them is that this particular proposal does take access now off of Mission Drive. They removed the access that was proposed coming off of Pine Street, and it still has an access point off of Maple. Part of the review of this project includes a traffic study. They've amended their analysis based on the location of the driveway, and we will be reviewing that as part of the applicant process. The other element was a downsizing of the structure itself in regards to all of the amenities that they were proposing inside there. The restaurant's been removed, some of the other features. There's 75 units on this, units on here. And what they're doing, instead of having suites, they're smaller units. They've taken out some of the combination units. There is an amenity. There's a pool area in the center of the project, and there's also a mechanical parking feature that will take care of the parking for the apartments that are up against Maple. The way the calculations for parking has gone through, they meet all of their parking on site. They actually have some extra parking spaces that may be tied to their other project on the corner of Alisal and Mission. But at this point, the changes that have been made are moving in the right direction. I believe it's more appropriate to the site. And the applicant is here tonight to present their project. And this is conceptual review. There is no additional motion, but we would love to hear direction from you on the project.
Yeah, that's from us. It's a matter of providing some comments and again, another reaction to this. We're not approving the proposal or anything like that, but it's
Correct.
just a matter of providing the comments on the changes that we see in the proposal, okay?
Correct.
So how would you like to proceed?
The applicant is here. They would like to make a presentation,
Okay,
if you'd like that.
terrific.
Hello, my name
Hello.
is Julie McGeever, and I'm a project manager for Ed St. George, and I'm working on this project. We've created a very simple PowerPoint presentation to go along with the plan set you all have in front of you.
Okay,
And before we move further, I also want to thank the Design Review Committee, Planning Commission, City Council, and especially staff, because this has been a very iterative project. And I think we're at a point now where we've got something that really is a fit for the community. Especially in the last couple of weeks, there's been extensive dialogue with neighbors around the area. So a lot of what we're going to speak about is in direct reaction to the feedback we've gotten.
okay. Very good.
Okay.
By the way, we received these comments from the We Watch, and are those available? Do they have these? Okay,
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
okay,
Okay, so here's the site generally. It is more often than not referred to as the old lumber yard site. It also includes one single-family lot that is located on Pine Street. Originally, that was secured as a point of access into the site. And over time, as we've talked back and forth with the community, we've analyzed the traffic patterns, and we've talked to the neighbors on Pine Street. there appears to be a disinclination to use that as a point of access. So we've returned, now that we've reduced the scope of the project, we return to the original plan where we enter off of Mission Street, or Mission Drive, excuse me, and we exit off of Maple. So here's a generalized site plan. Each one of the pages I'm going to present, the areas that we're speaking to are marked in pink, so that'll give you a generalized idea. So there's Building A, which is the primary hotel. It has 2 and 3 stories, mostly 2 stories all along the frontage. It has a total of 69 rooms. There is a pool and spa that's available for that hotel space. It's directly across the way. It has a gym for guests on the first floor. And as has been noted by Lori earlier, we've really just condensed and downsized the project as a whole and made this much more pedestrian-friendly, neighborhood-friendly, and very accessible, I believe. All of the units now are, I should say, all of the rooms are rooms. We no longer have the condominium units that we previously had. I think what is notable is that our frontage setbacks are pretty significant. They range everywhere from a minimum of about just under 8 feet at the main entry into the building up to 24 feet from back of curb. That was very intentional. We really wanted it to be not overbearing to the pedestrian public walking back and forth across Mission Drive. So this gives you an idea of the elevation as you're looking at the project. If you look down at the bottom, we've got a legend that follows along so you can get an idea of what view you're looking at. You can see that a majority of the frontage is 1 story, and then it has a 2nd story behind that. It's got a terrace area for the units that are above. And let me go a little further on.
Could I just ask a quick question on that
Yes.
one, just to help me
Yes.
interpret it?
Yes.
I believe the area that looks like the front entry, that is out, that extends out towards the street more than the
Yes.
areas to the left and right.
7 foot 9 inches.
That was my question,
Yes.
thank you.
This is a view of that same building facing from the east side. You can also again see what we did point out. You'll see that there's the setbacks from the face of curb and at the closest point of entry into the building, the 7 foot 9 inches. So you can see that's very generous. That was very intentional. And then on the eastern side, again, we have a setback of anywhere from 8 to 10 feet from the property line. That's all well landscaped. And then up on the 2nd floor, we also have patio terraces for those units. So this is looking at the project from the western side, so as it's facing the Veterans Hall. Again, it has been scaled back so that we've got multiple step backs in the building. What you're seeing in the far back of the project is the 1 3-story element of that building. Again, we tried to move it toward the interior of the site, and all of those units, what's notable, they face inward into the courtyard of the building and not outward into the adjacent neighborhood. So this is, again, the eastern elevation. What's also notable, some of the original proposals that we had brought to you had elements that were 3 and in some cases 4 stories. We are in excess of what was allowed by code. We have really addressed that. So there isn't any part of our building that, any of our buildings on site that is taller than 34 feet, 10 inches intentionally. Again, this is the northern elevation. This is looking from the interior of the site. And these are some general floor plans of each of the floor plates, just to give you an idea. There's a lobby into the main entry. There is a fitness area, office amenities, and then the units feeding directly off of each of the hallways. And this is just replicated at the 2nd and the 3rd floor. And again, you'll note that the only 3rd floor element on this project is well inward in the interior of the site. Now, we also have 2 other smaller buildings that are relational to the hotel. So those, each of them are 1-story units. They each have 3 hotel units within each one of them, or hotel rooms. That was very intentional. That you'll see as we move on through the presentation with the, when you see the elevations, we wanted them to be residential in character. We really wanted them to follow the character of what was already occurring on Pine Street. And you can see the access into them is pedestrian, and it's from the interior of the site. So again, all the parking is provided on the interior of the site. So the exterior face, as face from Pine, is quite attractive at this point. So as you're looking at these elements right here, what is noted as the view of the rear view is actually technically the view that you would see from Pine Street. So that's the third in the row there. And so these are the typical hotel units. And this is how the flavor of, when you're looking at it from Pine Street, you can see where the arrow is pointed out. That is what is going to be visible as you're going up the street. So it's a real change, and I think it, and those are going to be beautiful units. And again, I think it's in character with the rest of that street. You'll see the maximum plate height is 10 foot 1 inch. At the rear of the project, as you'll all remember, the underlying zoning of this site is DR20. The intent was to provide multifamily housing, I think intentionally as part of the rent allocation that was dictated by the state. We wanted to keep that, and it's interesting, that has become a real focal point of this project and of great interest. We have 45 micro units here. We've had a lot of positive feedback from the community as well as business owners that are very interested in perhaps leasing numbers of them for their workers. And I can speak personally myself. I have a senior facility down in Santa Barbara, and it is so hard to find reasonable, affordable housing for my staff. And they're traveling really, really long distances. So perhaps while this was not an intentional part of the original design, by incorporating these 45 units, I think we're going to see a real dramatic experience in lessening of traffic patterns. People that would be coming from Orchid or Santa Maria or other places to work here now can live here, and they're in the middle of the environment. It's a really wonderful, wonderful feature. I don't have floor plans on those individual units. We will present those at a future date, but they are about 450 square feet-ish, and despite their size, some of you might have had a chance to see the build-out that Ed did across the way, where he actually built out a model unit so you could see. They're incredibly functional, and his whole point, and he's brought this up many times, is, you know, the people that are moving into these units, they deserve a little dignity. I want them to have nice kitchens, nice bathrooms. And so that part of the project, excuse me, while perhaps not originally anticipated, is quite fun. And you're going to see some elevations as we move forward, and the impact on Maple, we've really adjusted that also. I feel really pleased about that, so.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can we ask questions as you're,
Sure,
as
yeah,
you're going along?
please.
So, there's 45 units, is that
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying? And where did these people park?
They will be parked in the parking structure directly across the way, so they have dedicated parking.
Across, oh, so.
So yeah, and you'll see that right at the middle of the site, just above the pool.
It's building C.
Yes,
Yeah, just above the pool.
Oh, it's in there, okay.
and it's an automated parker. So you will pull your car and you push a button, and there's a pit that's about 10 feet, and then you've got 2 levels of parking above. They're incredibly efficient. I've used them on a number of projects, and they just make the most of the space. And then it frees up more area for landscaping and what have you.
Sure. And then the second thing is, as far as, and they're for long-term rental?
Yes.
Right, okay. And then, they're 450 square feet, and is naturally the size would help limit how many people can be fit into one, but is there something that's going to, like some rental agreement that says you can't have 6 or 10 people in it? I mean, I'm
So
just-
you're saying like an HOA ordinance or set of rules. We haven't gotten that far yet in the design, but the intention would be that at most it'd be one person or perhaps a couple. They're intended for a worker that is in the downtown area, and I'm
Right.
sure that we'll probably have some sort of conditioning as long as that fits within the guidance of fair housing. Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
because it could be, if it's a family, it could be a family of 4, or
Yeah,
Yes.
it
doesn't-
could be,
And that is
it
not
affects.
intended here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a misnomer, and that's why it's called multifamily. I would call it residential, because it really isn't families at all. It's not a family housing unit.
Yeah, perhaps we can decide on a definition that works for staff and also meets your intent, because we're just following the code so that it can reference back to parking standards and things of that nature. But
Sure.
yes, that is the intention.
okay. And then but to enforce, you might say, well, limit of 2 people or something, and then.
Quite likely, yes.
And then someone can make sure that's the case, right?
Yes, there'll be active property management on
Oh,
this entirety of the site. Perhaps you haven't had a chance to see some of Ed St. George's projects, but he's very proactive about having on-site resident management, and he keeps his sites exquisite. That's just what he does.
Okay.
And-
We built, we have a sample of one of those. Oh, you told them?
Yeah, I had mentioned that, and it is still available. So if there's further interest, I mean, just from a practical user standpoint, they are incredibly functional. I wish we had more of them rather than less. We're actually proposing a very similar model on a project in Buellton. And again, the feedback has been very positive. The intention is that, yes, they are high efficiency. Yes, they are for a 1 or 2 person household, more often 1. But it's trying to be as affordable by design as physically possible. So these are going to be entry level. This type of model type does not exist right now in much of the Valley area.
Okay, so, yeah.
So this will give you an idea. You can see again the arrow looking at the multifamily from the interior of the site, or I should say the micro units. Again, we tried to keep it very residential in scale. Each one of those units has one of those windows, so they have a lot of natural daylight.
Could you go back to that for a second? I
Sure.
just didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
Got lost there. You said this is a view of the micro units, or this is the view from the micro
No,
units?
it's a view of the micro units. So if you
The
look at the
micro unit
legend down,
building.
yeah, there you go.
It's a southern elevation.
And that's from the interior of the site. Okay, so this is looking from the western edge, looking at the building, and again, you see it's been broken up. It's got some interesting gable elements, again, very intentionally to keep it very residential in scale. I'll also point out that you're starting to see the change in grade elevation. At the left-hand side, Maple is quite a bit higher than this project site, which is going to play very, very well into the next elevation that you'll see. So this is looking from Maple. This is one of the changes I personally really love. Originally, this particular building had been 4 stories, and we had parking underneath. We removed that. If any of you have been up on Maple, you're well aware that on the other side of the street, there's a number of 3-story elements, and many of those are up somewhat of a grade. And originally, we wanted to be consistent with that. Well, now this is far more modest. So the experience that you're going to have as a pedestrian as you're walking on Maple is going to be anywhere from a 2 to 2.5 story element. So much more in keeping, I think, with that general neighborhood.
Dashed line sort of suggests where that horizon.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
And then this is from, the side-facing residential. We have anywhere from an 8 to 10 foot setback. At the rear of that property, we have, at the first story, we have a outdoor patio area that's quite a bit set back. Okay, so this is at the interior of the site. This is the mechanical car parker. Again, we've used these on a number of projects, and they're just really bulletproof, and they give you a lot of functionality and allow you to park quite a few cars. So this will allow us to park 48 cars. That's in excess of what we need for the multifamily, so we've got a little bit of overflow. Very, very easy to use, just push button technology. So this gives you a flavor of what those automated structures look like. And what ends up happening, it's almost like a puzzle piece. You pull into one space, you push the button, and then moves your car around. And when you bring it back, you also push back and it will bring your car to you. Now, previously, this is worth pointing out, in the project's previous iteration, we had an underground parking garage that was pretty significant. And it spanned the entirety of the hotel building and much of the multifamily. It was made very clear to us that that was a level of site disruption that would be very unpalatable to the neighborhood. And in evaluating all of our best practices on this, we came up with a car parker. And so now that is going to be the only structure that is going to have any significant excavation in order to have the pit. So it's a very much more reduced footprint. This gives you a flavor of what it looks like. Again, looking from the interior of the site, we're still keeping with the mission design character because that part of the building also faces the pool and jacuzzi area, and so it's going to have a nice outdoor feel. And again, it creates a little bit of a noise barrier between that use multifamily and the multifamily behind. This is the rear of the property, and so you'll see that's how you'll access those parking units. You'll see a max plate height of 20 feet. And the side elevations. These are our first try at color and materials. I can tell there's a lot of interest in color. No, it's great. I love that. So, again, we're going for a pure mission style. We're trying to reflect what you see on the other side of the street with the Mission of San Ynez. And so we've kept the color palette very, very simple. But we will be interested in receiving feedback from you as we evolve through this.
You don't have actual chips, right, with you today?
We submitted, yeah, I think we just submitted electronic copies, but we will bring those for sure.
Because we got our fancy new lights. And
Yes, that's right.
we want to
Yeah.
use
So here's a selection of the lighting that we're proposing. Again, we're really trying to be authentic to the look. We want to definitely respect the night sky. Or the interpretation of the county, at least, night sky ordinance. I didn't realize the city did not yet have one in place. They're all LED lights, and they'll all be shielded. And this is just an initial photometric study that showed that we comply and are keeping all of our proposed lighting on site, and we're not bleeding into any adjacent uses. Here's our landscape plan. Again, first shot. And we will be open for any type of feedback you'd like to provide to us. Again, of course, it's drought tolerant, and wherever possible, we've proposed native species. That's kind of hard to read, so I did a little bit of a layout of some of the major trees that we're proposing on site. So these will all be familiar to you. But again, we're very open to feedback as we evolve the next step of the landscape plan. That's it. Did you want me to stay here for questions, or did you just want to chat about it?
No, I mean, are there any questions? Sure.
So I'll go sit down and come back?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, we will go to public comment. I think we appreciate yours, and you've seen the submissions filed with us from We Watch, as well as from Lansing Duncan regarding the proposal. And at the risk of characterizing them or trying to characterize them, I think they reflect, I think, what's the sense of many of us here, that the changes and responses seen here in these plans are terrific. And I think it really reflects your efforts to respond to the concerns that people here had addressed. And it's definitely a terrific amount of effort to get from where we were to this point, and it feels a lot better. Are there any comments anybody here in the room has regarding the proposal? Please. Would you come up, please, and identify yourself, and so your voice will be
I don't know if anybody wants to actually hear my.
We'll find out. That'll depend on what you say, but you,
Oh, there you go.
but we're going to have to, we would appreciate your identifying yourself in the microphone and then proceeding from there.
My name is Jim Filik, and it was a lovely presentation, and I wish I had her working for me, because, like, as you said about the landscape architect before, it was beautifully done, and I missed out hiring that person. I'm one who believes in semantic precision, and okay, I have 3 minutes. I'll never get done. But I would like to say that the community outreach, when she said disinclination, the people that I've spoken with on Pine Street, the disinclination was no way in rust. Rust referring to the fence previously mentioned by all the members of the board here, I might ask, as not being acceptable. And for the access point on Pine Street. And so I would question who was involved in the community outreach and who the neighbors with whom they spoke. And when she said intentionally 34 feet 10 inches, of course it was 3410, because the previous was above the height limit and would have to have an amendment to the code. When we said that the 34 units were not originally intended, and then came about that, well, we intended them to be micro units of 400 and some odd square feet, that seemed to be reversing itself. We didn't really intend, but here they are. They could be wonderful options for perhaps affordable housing for people who were commuting from Lompoc to live here. But she said it wasn't really intended that way, but it's working out that way. But then she said it was intended to be that way. And then Mr. St. George said that he was working on a project in Buellton with similar things and had positive feedback. I think he's talking about the Campus 36. I'd like to know what positive feedback he has on the 116 units he's planting at Campus 36, because I have not heard any positive feedback on that. So we hear a lot of things, but the semantics are not precise. And Gertrude Stein would be rolling in her grave. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from anyone in the room? Then how about, what you, no one's on Zoom that has their hand up. So let's go to our committee. Any comments, guidance, responses? All we're charged with doing is providing some feedback that at this point in the, we're not approving anything. Yeah, please.
Could I ask a question before we get into the discussion?
Okay.
I just want to understand, there was the discussion about this property will eventually be in the TRC. So when the general plan update happens.
That's a good point.
That will become, the entire property becomes TRC? So I would just say, for the sake of conversation then, not to detract from the mission style, because I think it's beautiful and that's, I think it's lovely, but then are we charged with requiring the Northern European architecture in the TRC, because that is currently what is required in the TRC? I don't know if that's going to change with the general plan, and I know that might be a question that nobody has the answer to, but that's just something that I'm thinking about as we're discussing all of this. So I wanted to make sure I understood that.
have, in my notes, that's exactly one of my key is, it'll be okay once we get the new general plan drafted mean, that's the plan to make this acceptable, because it's, I just didn't know how that would occur during the process, but will there be other areas in the TRC where an architectural standard other than the Danish historical tradition are expected to be advanced?
Yes, so it is an interesting process because we're going through the large comprehensive general plan update. We have been working with the applicant with the thought that if the general plan proceeds as it's proceeding right now, that this property could potentially be rezoned in order to accommodate the use. It is something that we could definitely work through the process of the general plan update and community design element update that you will be working on and everybody will continue to work on to ensure that this style would still be applicable to this particular property. I think the conversation here had started with it being right across the mission, and that was actually desirable. So it's within the powers of the approvers to still make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I had the same issue because it says in the staff presentation that the plan is to make this TRC, but still make it, despite that fact, it would be acceptable to have the mission style. It looks good. Like even the car park, you've got the mission elements in there, and that looks great. The issue that we're contending with is the TRC, the Design Review Committee, is responsible for the design of the projects and so forth, and that we're especially charged with protecting the Danish traditional historical within the TRC. And if this is in the TRC, then, how are those exceptions, how is it going to handle, like I say, is there going to be other exceptions to the standard that now applies, and how will that work? And that hasn't been all the way thought through, I gather.
Right, so where we are with the design element update is that you, the design review committee, have held a special meeting. We have the feedback from all of you. It's with the consultants. They're drafting the report. That report will go through the rigorous review of the GPAC. It will then come back to your committee again. Obviously, the TRC right now is the defining element for the architecture. You could use another boundary or whatever you want to continue to create that intent. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied to, the zoning of TRC. So we can definitely work through that. And as I mentioned, I think this conversation from the beginning started with the fact that it was across from the mission and the style made sense for this particular
Is there anything that requires? Is this area now it is not in the TRC though now, right?
No.
So is there anything about this project that requires it to be in the TRC?
It's the use of the hotel.
That's the hotel.
The zoning currently is DR20.
Okay.
And DR20 does not allow for the extent of a commercial, the hotel, as
Can
they
you
would
zone
like
it to be a hotel without it being TRC?
We could go general commercial, but, the intent is to be hotel is tourist-related commercial. So, so I think what you're driving at is, will the process through the general plan update, through the design review, make an exception for this area to be respectful of the buildings that are around that neighborhood, be it the
Well,
same?
no, I'm talking about the village. I'm talking about the, respectful of the requirement which is now very clearly defined.
Correct.
As being the historic traditional Danish style in the Danish capital of America. Or whether, we're going to, and now that says that the TRC, that's the standard that has to be applied. Now we're
Well,
saying, what?
And isn't this kind of like, this is a gateway to the TRC? So
Yeah.
this is gonna kind of end up, I think, the intent is this is a little bit of the exception that proves the rule because of it's setting across from the historical mission next to the
Right.
Vets building, all of which incorporate the mission style. And therefore, if we're following current TRC guidelines, well, then, no go. But I don't believe that those will be in play at the point that this gets approved, given the process.
I think,
Yeah.
let me just say, I think that the clarification is that the village area is the defining factor for the Danish architecture, and we need to just stick to that. And I want to hear Brian's comments before he leaves, so if we
Yeah.
could just
Yeah.
pivot back to that, I'd be really appreciative of that. Not to circumvent it, but I think it's handled
Yeah, no, I
in
understand.
village area, the way we've been talking about it in the GPAC, and it's not
Okay.
something that we need to continue to talk about tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you, Jennifer. I don't have a whole lot, I did have questions, which I asked already. The one thing I can't figure out, I've been looking through, this is the front of, this is, Mission is right here, is that correct? How far from the sidewalk is that actual lobby door? I mean, it seems and it looks like it's really close, like it's
Which is why
within a few feet of it.
Yeah,
It's
that's why I
7
interrupted.
it's
It says
7.5 feet,
7'9".
yeah.
Yeah, 7'9".
From the side,
Yeah.
Right.
And then my question was, like, how do you get in that front door? Because people aren't walking in that front door, they're driving, so they're not, you know, how do they?
that was my second confusion, because do people park and then walk all the way around the building and enter that lobby there? How does that work?
If you would all refer to A 1.1, so it's a little bit internal to your package.
This one?
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
So that gives you a clear indication. Yes, there is an entry off of the pedestrian way, and you can see exactly where that tightest point is of the 7'9" into the doorway. But the vast majority of the frontage you'll see is actually anywhere from 24 feet to 20 feet. So it's just at that point of entry into the building. And then if you're staying here and you're parking, you'll see that there's a point of access from the rear of the property, right at that corner of that elbow.
Okay, so who's really gonna use the lobby entrance off the street? Just guests that were there that walked around and they come back in that way, or?
You know, we've always been classically trained to respect the streetscape and respect the pedestrian nature of this, and not close yourself in from the pedestrians walking up and down the street. And this is a very pedestrian-friendly community. We're not expecting it to perhaps be a primary point of access, but it is a point of access, and we can take that point into consideration and study it for sure.
Yeah, it just seemed,
Like, where do you park and go in, I guess, was one of my questions.
There's a double door entry at that elbow that she's describing. The double doors do not show on this drawing, but it is there in another drawing.
oh, back in here somewhere. Okay, that was my first thing, and then, the other one was just the building looks beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. The only other thing was that now we have residential in a pretty densely populated little area there with 45 new residents, or possibly way more than that. And, I mean, there's not much else I would say about it other than, that I just think because I'm in that neighborhood far enough away that I don't need to recuse myself, but it's just worrisome because there's so many apartment buildings all over that whole area. So, other than that, those are my comments. I think it's a beautiful building. But-
Thank you. And I'll take those points into consideration as we continue to look at this. The intent of putting the micro units at the back was to create a buffer between the commercial usage and the residential at the back, so that you had residential facing residential on Maple. And then as you worked into the site and came out into the streetscape area, it became more public and commercial in nature.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I think it was, I like the rethinking of the plan and going back to that, the micro units. A couple of, I'm almost wondering, should we kind of take this in specific, rather than kind of addressing it
Okay.
hodgepodge, should we
Sure.
kind of talk about specific things rather than kind of going off in tangents?
Okay.
Which might make the conversation a little more
Do
organized.
you want to start there at building B, I guess it is, which is I'm again still on A1.1.
I think
but-
we should maybe just start with A, start at the beginning of the big main
Okay.
structure and
Okay.
make our way through. And the location in Solvang makes this design far more desirable. Nice work in starting to really consider the neighborhood, how it's impacting the neighbors, the traffic flow, the access for the micro units going off to a residential connector street rather than needing, it being the closest exit and entrance makes good sense. There are many favorable improvements. One of my concerns lies in the color. Yes, a mission kind of color palette, I think, is, called for in this location. But we're back to our conversation about bright whites, feeling as though it should have a complement to the Vets Hall and a complement to the mission across the street, but be a more subdued tone, especially given the volume of wall space that's going to be covered in the light. The contrasting color being a wood look fits well with it, but perhaps being a wood look that is not as dark. So again, the contrast is there, but not such a stark, almost black and white look to it that is present in what I see for the color samples. So I'd like to express concerns about that. One of the things that makes these drawings look very appealing is all of the landscaping. But I'm not really sure that all the landscaping that you have illustrated here is actually going to be on the site and be able to grow in the really narrow little planters. So I would like to hear more about that, because it's going to be very important to soften the aesthetic on the entire building, but especially when you think about those micro units in back, that there needs to be a visual that gives it a sense of, I don't know, something calm rather than just building in cars that the small units are looking out at. I have lots more comments, but I'm gonna throw it back to you before I continue.
Okay, if we're going to do it building at a time, and comments on the main hotel, or is that, comments on the main hotel, its proximity, its height, its, any comments about that?
Well, I just have a question, I guess. Since we're talking about the main hotel, the removal of the old house and relocation, where is that going to be relocated to, that house? Somewhere in the area?
Is it at Dunn School? That's where so many of them have been.
We have talked to Dunn School. There is every intent to relocate the building to an appropriate site within the community.
Okay, thanks. And I would just, on the note of landscaping, I noticed the jacaranda tree, which I would love to see here, but do they grow here? I think it's
No.
possibly too cold here for that, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the landscape options are not well suited to our environment here.
Our funny little microclimate
Yeah.
here in Solvang. Anyway, that was just, save you some money on trees.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah,
Jenna.
no, I would, I actually think it's a really come a long way, and it looks really nice, and it's super attractive. I really think that the site is used smartly. But, so I would agree that the white's gonna be, my recommendation is to make sure it's not that glacial white. I know pure white, with all the sun, it's just, it might want to be a little bit softer. I don't know, I have actually a Spanish house too, so and it's white, and it bothers me, I haven't been able to repaint it. And I think of it as like this white thing on the, it just, it feels like you don't want the whole neighborhood to like feel like there's this massive white reverberating building. And I'm sure you guys can pick a beautiful color that's a little less maybe super white. And then I would just recommend the parapet wall along both the east and west elevations. If I'm a resident of Pine and I'm up on that hill and I'm looking down, which I'm not, but if I was, I think I'd want to see something softening along that roof line, if possible. Flat architecture in that expanse isn't going to feel Mission. It's going to feel much more commercial. And so I'd like to see a softening of those sides. Maybe a detail. It hopefully wouldn't take much, but just something to make it a little less blocky and soften that so that when you're looking out, you see kind of more of a roof scape than a commercial building. And I'm going to stick to the plan of talking only about that building. So those are those two comments. And then just the front to Mission, I think that Lansing actually made a really good point when he was talking about the massing of the windows and not overdoing the complexity of those windows. So the 6 above the porte cochere or the entry point seem very heavy, and they might seem a little bit more gracious if you pull back and maybe there's only 4 versus 6 and the spacing. Think about that. The same for the, I think it was the east elevation. It seemed crowded in that view. There were 3 arched windows at that end point, and I think maybe he noted in the floor plan it looked like that was 2 in reality based on the plan. But it would be nice to marry the 2 arched windows on the other side of the 3, so there's more of something connecting, and they don't seem so potentially random. So minor, but you guys want feedback, so there it is. And I think that was it. I actually think 24 feet in the front arched way is going to be nice. 24 feet's really nice, and I think 7.79 at the door makes sense. I would walk past this, and I think it would. I'm actually kind of bummed that the restaurant's not going to be there, because I'd like to walk in and from the house down the street. But no, I think that's nice, and so that's my comments for the main building.
Okay. I'll speak just to the main buildings, and not a lot. I already spoke to my one concern has to do with the issue with the TRC limitations and slippery slopes and so forth. But I agree that it's a terrific job. It's very thoughtful. It's much more, I think, harmonious with the space that's there. I think they've tackled a number of tricky uses very successfully. I agree with I think it's Lansing's comment also about the whiteness, as others have said here. Pure white is probably going to be too white, maybe too white, and the suggestion of be off-white cream with a hint of earth tone makes sense. I tend to agree with that. But I think it's, overall, the main building, I think, is well-positioned and is going to be a gee-whiz point of entry into the heart of the city. What do you want to?
Well, I want to echo concur with all of that, and just to reiterate that I believe Lansing Duncan has a letter that we all received and is on public file, that there's some very valid points that I think we all echo that. So I won't say more, but rather reference Lansing's letter. And later on, I would like to revisit the landscaping as we go through it, and perhaps after we go through all the buildings.
since we're at the front of the property, originally I was trying to understand the entry. I realize now it's entry on Mission, exit on Maple. So that obviously mitigates people trying to make a left turn onto Mission.
Is that actually true?
That's-
Is it a one-way entrance that you must depart
And-
out of Maple?
And how is that a guarantee? I mean, is there some kind of I mean, in other words, is there some kind of monitoring or some kind of just, or is it just an arrow that says don't, don't turn here? Because I can see people trying to just, well, I'm parked right here at the front part of the property and I'm just gonna zip out real quick, and rather than go all the way around the block, I admit I would even possibly consider doing that. And that could create a lot of bottlenecking, especially people trying to make a left turn. So, I mean, there may not be an answer, but I don't know. I know sometimes if it's a one-way in, maybe there's even spikes or something where they can't come back out the other way. That's not always like the nicest looking thing, so I'm not necessarily suggesting that, but I would like to see a plan that made it very clear what people are supposed to do and that they are not supposed to come back out that way. So maybe it's less of a question and more of a suggestion.
And Caltrans may have.
Yeah, I'm
Thoughts on
sure,
that,
I'm sure.
Okay. What else, Esther, do you want to touch on here?
I'd like to maybe take a look at the building facing Pine. I think that is building E.
E, yeah.
Looking for the page with that. And just kind of the elevation from Pine. That's where I think it's really important to soften the main building with some embellishments perhaps, rather than just the two windows that are on it right now, still on, building A, don't seem logically placed for visual harmony. And maybe there's a way of adding some embellishments both on the side of the building and at the roof line. The units that the hotel units that on that little lot there, I think they're a nice addition that fit within the neighborhood. I realize that the neighbors would really love to have all of the units be at that height. I wish that there were a way of doing that and making that property work, but understanding that that's not the case. So just to kind of really take into account the view that the neighbors on Pine have of Building A from that visual. Appreciating the fact that you've continued the design around the corner, recognizing that as you come into Solvang on 246, that side that faces Pine isn't gonna just face the neighborhood, but it's gonna be a really visual point. Because when you're driving by, it's actually kind of hard to see the front unless you're over visiting the Mission and coming out. So that side facing Pine becomes very important to the overall aesthetic of the project from my view of things. Okay, that's kind of it for that.
On those on Building E, the Pine Street, will there be any kind of fencing or anything on the Pine Street side, or is it just open? In other words, that one visual you had with the arrows.
Exposed, you want to know if it's exposed to the street?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I realize there'll be some landscaping, but,
We'll find out. We'll work with them
yeah.
to get.
I'm just curious.
I do think actually it might be better to have a fenced-in type of space than have it be exposed, even if because it's not a residence, so I'm not sure that you even want to have a hotel use, like people coming in and out with their luggage, and it almost, the visual of it seems almost disruptive on a residential street. So you might want to just put a fence on that side and make it more lush and more, you're seeing a nice fence, so no metal, and then landscaping, and then it's more private.
If I understand the plans, the entrance to those units don't
It's
face.
interior to the site, not from the street.
A fence, if that were used, I would recommend something that was lower than the 6-foot
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah.
You know, a 3-foot or a 4-foot or something that was a kind of nice neighborhood, because with the exception of the house that's on the corner of Pine and Mission, that's, you know, most of the front yards there are without fences.
And those buildings, or that building will be pretty close to the property line versus the homes, right? Which will have like a driveway
Yeah,
or a front
right.
yard, or, so it might, I mean, I think it's a nice way to kind of incorporate it into the residential area. At first I was like, I'd really rather see something else there, but the more I looked at it, the more it got described, and, you know, I think that is a nice solution, but just with, in thinking about that it will be more building close to the street than
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 you would
normal.
normally
Right,
have.
right.
So that makes me ask, how far from, what is the setback for those units that face Pine? Probably was on one of those slides.
Yeah, and it's also, I
A11.
believe it's on A1.1. I think, as I remember, I think it's 20 foot from center line and 5 foot from the back of curb.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we go on to the
Yeah, let's keep
building
going.
C?
Let's keep going.
So, question about building C with the mechanized parking. Is that something that's pretty quick? Often I would think of that as being the parking for the hotel guests versus the residents, just for, you know, accessing, oh, I forgot this in my car. You know, so now do you have to go wait 3 minutes while your car mechanically comes up the elevator, or I'm not sure how those, I love the concept, but.
They work very quickly, you know, within seconds, less than a minute. I've installed them on projects in Isla Vista with the student usage, and, you know, they're incredibly durable, and they're easily accessed. You tend to use them more with the resident population that is comfortable with using them, so they've been trained and know how to do that. And, you know, for most hotel users, they want to just come, park, and they'll be valeted into their unit. So that's what we have structured at this point, but we're open for further dialogue on it.
Because that's what I was thinking, that it seemed like this was almost like the valet unit in a way, was my thought.
As a resident, I would be like, oh, I can't even believe I have to go back out to my car for the 3rd time, which I do a lot.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
I left
and
my
agree,
phone in there.
call it, yeah, and so I could see myself being tempted to park on the street somewhere, thereby, you know, overflowing cars that are meant to be within the compound out into the already congested streets of Solvang. And I agree that as a hotel guest, I would expect to kind of leave my car and maybe come and get it one time while I'm here. Residents might come and go 20 times in a day, you know.
But that's, yeah.
There may
that's-
not be a solution to that, because you're obviously limited on space, and you've got 45 spots, and you have 75 hotel rooms, so maybe that's not a solution, but
We have plenty of parking, so
Yeah.
that we do have that.
Right.
So I think that's a further discussion with the transportation department and our planners, and just figuring out how we're gonna dictate who parks where, but we do have plenty of parking.
yeah.
Which is the good thing, and that was what I was gonna
Yeah.
comment on it, that
Yeah.
does incorporate on-site parking, which is a positive. And perhaps the idea of having your car in a covered facility makes up for the fact that you might have to wait for a second,
Yeah,
as
for
opposed
sure.
to having it on the street.
And
Since we
and
can't walk
actually
them.
just being able to get a spot, you know that when you push the button, there's gonna be a spot available, rather
Before you
than
sit down-
driving around,
sorry,
right?
I'm sorry.
I mean.
I can stay here.
Well, no, it's just that I thought, well,
Yeah.
so you don't have to
Yeah.
keep getting up and down, and we are on the subject of parking.
Yeah.
Another question I had was about the 9 spots dedicated for the Alisal Mission corner. Probably some of you have this question too. So if those spots are set aside, is it true that the people who would be in those vacation rentals are gonna walk with their suitcases down the street, across the street? Are there gonna be some kind of valet, or what's the plan there? Because I don't wanna stay in a vacation rental where I have to walk across a busy street with my suitcases. That's, I mean, call me lazy or whatever, but I want convenience. So I know that there's an issue with that, and that's kind of a different conversation, that particular project that we all really liked. So that's concerning to me, that those dedicated spots would be that far away, not even directly across the street.
And that's a very good point. You know, again, these are almost placeholders at this
Sure.
point in time to show that we have
Right.
that parking available, but that is continuing to be an iterative dialogue. And you're correct, when someone is checking in, they want to have access to their units. I'm sure you've all have been in resort communities where they'll allow you to drive up and put your product in, and then you
Right.
have to move your car out to the outer ring so it stays pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
But that will be an active dialogue with staff.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for answering.
Yeah, because I am not in favor of allowing these units, or these parking spaces to be dedicated for the other unit. I do feel like there's other uses for those, both for guests and for staff working there, but also goes back to that landscape thing that we still have to talk about. Going back to Building C and the other function of it, with the pool, the rooftop pool, seems like it'll be a very nice area. Another reason to kind of tone down the paint, because it's gonna be a hot area up there with the reflection, and maybe you wanna consider some kind of pergola over some of that area to create a little bit of shade. Because, and I know there was, I believe you've got some shading up there, but it's something you're gonna wanna consider from our hot sunny days here. And perhaps some way of incorporating pots with green that will soften that wall and mitigate that reflection as well. When you've got a harsh white and water, you've got a lot of light going on there. It seems like it could be kind of a fun space. Is that space something that you envision as being potentially available for the residents on that property, or is that strictly something for hotel guests as envisioned?
At this point, it's been anticipated for use by the hotel guests, but, you know, that's a discussion to be had. We haven't even gone there yet.
Yeah, I'd like to see if there would be some way that you could consider that. I think that would be a huge plus if there was any way to add amenities to those micro units that allow outdoor space, because there's very little exterior space available for
Even
that.
if it was just like weekday use or certain hours of the day where residents
Yeah.
could use it or something like that. I agree, that would be a nice gesture.
Would. And I didn't mention earlier, the roof was looked right. Yeah, roof just right.
My only comments on Building C are similar in that the Building C south elevation adjacent to the pool area, I'd like to see those big white expanses broken up with either trellis or something, just, they look like movie screens right now, so I'd like to see something there to break that up on both of those big panels. And then equally, the side, again, if you think about the east and west elevations and the views from, you know, you have a little architectural detail noted with the faux arch windows, but again, just be thoughtful about those big white walls. Those are the things that people really have have a problem with,
So-
staring them down.
One suggestion, and again, this is discussion, is would you be open to having some of these buildings with different colors, shades of whites, or something so that it's not just monotone?
Yeah, absolutely. Palette of colors that are complementary and let them fade back a little bit, I think could be helpful, for sure.
Though I do think that when you're talking about a big wall, no matter what color it is,
It's still
it's
a
going to be
big wall.
opposing in
Yeah.
different ways. It might not be as reflective if it's got a darker paint or something, but I agree, some kind of architectural detail on some of those big stark walls.
Expanses.
Yep,
Yeah.
and above the entrance to the
Yeah.
parking area, same thing. It's a big white area, or whatever color it
Even
is.
if it's trees.
Big stark
or, you know,
wall.
I mean, or something.
Some climbing vine or something.
Mhm.
And understanding that might very well be something that's a faux element to it. Clearly, it's not gonna be a real window.
Not faux planting.
No, not faux, like a window that isn't really going anywhere.
No
kind of
astroturf.
thing.
Just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Bad segue. Okay, what do we do next?
We're going to the
Micro
the
units.
micro
micro
unit
units.
building, yeah.
Okay?
I'm gonna start.
Good.
I don't have a lot of comments on them. Personally, I actually think the building looks nice. It's a far better dwelling, building than the original plan, which I was really against. This feels like someplace that I might actually, would want to be in, which is great. So I think the only odd thing, and I think this might just be the renderer, is the detail of like the roof line looks almost, it almost looks like a different architectural design than the main hotel building. And so I think it should look compatible, but in the rendering, there's something that looks almost like it's not quite Mission, so.
You're correct, it does have gable
Yeah.
elements, and
Yeah.
it was to reflect off of the multifamily that's on Maple.
Okay.
But if you're feeling that the direction should be more consistent within the campus itself, we'll definitely take that point.
To me, I don't know that I'm gonna tell you to dictate that, but I would, it feels odd, right?
Okay.
It's close enough that it feels like it's not quite right, like you almost, something went wrong, or I don't know, it's not different enough, and it's not the same. So it's sort of in that, for me, it's like, I don't know, that's my opinion about it.
I don't dislike the hip and the gable, but I echo what you said, because it's like either it needs to be intentionally different or more the same.
Similar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did tour the units when you had them open, and they, were very nice. So I have some questions about how that model would translate into this. A lot of what made the model very nice is the volume of space in there. Is that something that's doable in this 3-story building at all, to be able to have taller ceilings to make it seem like a bigger space?
I can't speak to the volume of the one that you saw, but we can definitely achieve 9.5 foot plate heights within the units, and that's a pretty significant volume of space.
Yeah, I think I would very much recommend that, because that additional space above gives you the feeling of a greater space on the floor. A few things I would very much recommend that you consider. We already talked about the name, because I have this problem with calling it multifamily, because it almost seems to invite over occupancy. Windows that open and having a lot of light in the units. I think the sample unit didn't have windows that open, but I hope that was just because it was the sample. How do people access the 2nd and 3rd story units? That wasn't clear to me. Is there exterior stairwells and elevators?
Yes.
And every unit has a door that goes to the outside. There's no interior hallways, or are there? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Yes, there is access from the interior of the corridors.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd really like to recommend that there be very careful thought given to the views out the units to allow as much green space, because some of them are going to be looking at that building C. So something that gives them a view and allows a common open space. That's why I was mentioning the pool, that even as Joyce said, that maybe certain hours, because where do people go outside here? They'd have to go outside into a public space that's off-site. That is there a space where there can be a grill? Can they have an outside space to have a grill and a table so that they could have, somebody over and be able to be outside, to make the space more habitable for the residents?
I'll just interject. I just got back from Hawaii, where I stayed in a condo complex that, was making the best use of space. They didn't want people to have barbecues on their lanais. And so they did have a really nice community kind of barbecue area that was for the residents. And I thought that was great, because it gives people the option. I mean, for better or worse, we're humans, we like to be social. Most of us, a lot of us anyway, or it's important to have some social. So it's nice to be able to interact with your neighbors as well, I think, versus just putting your car and pushing the button and getting into your place. Some people want a little bit more interaction than that, I think. And so that's a nice idea, or even just a little patio hang area or something, a
Yeah.
communal space that's just for the people that live there.
I think it gives it more of a sense of neighborhood
Yes.
to do that. And also because the units are so small, if you want to invite 4 people over for dinner, well, you know, there's a limit as to how much you can put somebody inside. And it seems like having an outdoor space would be a very welcome feature there.
Anything else on the micro units?
That's it for me on micro units.
Okay.
I have a couple comments. I wasn't sure, I had a note here, what exactly is a micro studio? I haven't seen the sample, but then when you said 450 square feet, I have a couple of cottages that are right around 450 square feet, and I think they're actually very livable for 1 or 2 people. And so I think that's great. I also own a business where most of my employees have to drive in from Lompoc or elsewhere. So I hope they're affordable, and I think, and many of them are young people who don't have kids. I wouldn't mind seeing a few units that were bigger, you know, a few multifamily units, or I should say, family units. Are there any ADA units? Because I can't imagine a 450 square foot studio would be, I don't know if that's big enough for a wheelchair. Is the bathroom big enough for a wheelchair? So I don't know if that's been addressed or not, but I'm sure there's some requirement.
It is, we have to be ADA compliant, so
Right.
there's a certain percentage that need to be accessible.
Sure, okay, yeah. So, I like it. I think studios are great, especially for young people, but not always just for young people. Not to exclude anyone else, often even the other way around. So I like that. And I think that's all I had on the micro units. Just more comments than anything else.
Yeah, and I think back to the micro units, and I mentioned windows that open. I think it's really important. We live in an environment that's really beautiful. Not having to run your HVAC system constantly and being able to have fresh air, which has become even more important, we've all learned during COVID. So just that there be a way that, you know, maybe the front door has a screen door, I don't know, something to allow a movement of air within the spaces. Because it's not like they're gonna go sit on the patio unless you create a space, and that might be downstairs around the corner and you're in the 3rd story in the top.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? On any part of this proposal? We have another item to cover, obviously, but
I'd
want
like
to make
to-
sure that there's an ample
I
opportunity.
think we only
for
went
people
in to make landscaping
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, I think the landscaping.
Okay.
It's, to me, landscaping is critical on this project, and I'm trying to kind of figure out how you can create the landscaping that's so pretty in the pictures and makes it look so inviting. It seems like there's a lot of retaining walls and very narrow spaces to put in the trees, and I think Lansing, Duncan's letter spoke very well to this, is that the landscape choices for the plantings and the trees do need to be revised to meet our climate here. So I'd like you to really carefully consider that, adding to the palette that's here, so that there's also landscaping in the interior space where there's very little now, and being, potentially even utilizing some of those parking spaces to create an environment. And I'm not saying use lots of parking spaces, I don't mean that, but it may allow you to have a little bit of flexibility and be able to incorporate some more green into the project.
What is your appetite for perhaps pursuing something like a green wall on some of the larger exterior faces, especially perhaps adjacent to the pool?
See, I think that that's a good option.
Yeah.
And there's also vines that crawl up that aren't invasive. You know, like to see something that doesn't take 5 to 7 years, but I think it's really important to consider that. And that's a cooling element as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the green wall concepts for sure, and I just wanted to say that jacaranda I love. I have one in my front yard in LA. It's a problem with the cars. You don't want those near any parked cars for your guests. They will hate your guts.
And they'll freeze here in this climate. They
Yeah,
won't
I
survive.
don't actually think they would thrive here
No.
anyway.
The sticky that it gets, it's just
Yeah.
not fun. But I love them.
They're sure pretty.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
sure are.
bougainvillea, it's great, but you
Yeah.
can't, it's great, it'll last until it freezes and then that's gone.
That's
Yeah.
the one issue, you know, here versus Santa Barbara. we're not very far away, and you would think, but there's that mountain range there and all these things that happen that create these really cold nights for us, you know, so that definitely changes the ability to grow some of those more tropical friendly plants.
And
But
also hot days.
hot days,
Yeah.
yeah, and reflective walls. I mean, I have that problem at my house, and I've got cactus that can live in Phoenix, but for some reason they're against a lighter colored wall at my home, and they like shrivel up and they don't do well, you know, so I'm not saying you're talking about cactus, but obviously you'll work with a landscape architect who will know these things. But maybe you find someone from the valley or who is really, you know, really knowledgeable about this area. And just a quick note on the architectural details higher than 35 feet. So the roof lines won't be higher than 3410. And then I'm assuming those architectural details are some of those like gables, or I'm not sure what they're called, but, and Lori, maybe I would just ask you, is that a common thing to allow architectural details that go beyond the roof line? Okay.
Yes.
That was my question.
How much beyond?
Yeah.
Well, it's to the scale of the project.
Okay, so I think that should be boxed into some parameter. Scale to project could mean, you know, it could mean 5 feet by 20 feet. I mean, so I think you need to be careful about how much of that actually pops up above 35 feet, and that it's kept to a minimum, for sure.
Well, usually they're, you know, heating units that, you know, need venting.
Yeah.
You know, it might be something that looks like a bell tower, you know.
Little ornamentation, but.
Ornamentation, a spire,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
I get it. I just am saying,
Yeah.
you don't want it to get so much that that people's perception is that it's higher than 35 feet in multiple, you know, in your perspective view across the project, so.
So this project, as designed, is much more in conformance with the TRC zone. And those elements that they will consider proposing will take into consideration. But it will also come back to you, and it will go to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So there's always your influence on these elements.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just like to close with mentioning as well the letter from Nancy Emerson, We Watch, on this project that I hope that your group will take a look at that. And the fact that we very much appreciate all the work that's gone into these very significant changes to make this be a project that fits better with the
Yeah.
environment in which it's located.
Yeah, it's
And-
really come along very
Yeah.
nicely, and
We look
we're trying
forward-
to give you tweaks.
It's an
but,
exciting
you know,
project
it's-
for-
Yeah, we
For
look
the-
forward to the next iteration.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and again, I have to hand it to your staff. They've given us a lot of time, a lot of time.
Thank you.
It's a very, very significant project, and that's why we all consider this so important, and the community has certainly expressed that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final comments or whatever? I think we obviously got to keep moving along,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure this is important to give the time that was necessary for this project. We're not going to have another project
Yeah, I
like
know.
this.
So just in
For sure.
context of where we will be going with this project,
Please.
it's being incorporated into the general plan update. And so we will continue to work with the applicant and the design team. We may bring it back again interim, but at this point, we probably have several months, if not, 6 to 9 months before we're actually going to be back into the project application review.
Okay?
Great.
Thanks again for
Yeah.
all of your help and the consideration of the prior comments, and looking forward to continuing to work with you on this exciting project.
Thank you guys for doing what you do.
We have one more project to talk about. Luca, I guess that's what they're calling it now. And that is the review the proposed architecture, color, materials, landscaping, a monument sign, flagpole at the Market, Deli, and Restaurant at 1714 Mission Drive. Sophia, you have you want to give us a summary of the, of your staff report?
Yes, sir. So you reviewed this project on May 19th and provided a lot of comment that we saw that the applicant incorporated into their plan. They're planning on removing the, what was it, the drive-through for the bank and adding an addition that will serve as a restaurant. So previously, when we presented this in May, it did not include their restaurant concept in this way. So now it is a market, deli, and restaurant. So they'll be adding a significant amount to the back. There will be 2 small outdoor eating areas that total, I think, 855 square feet. One is on the south end of the building and the other is on the east end of the building. They're also planning on overhauling the parking lot. Sorry, let me look at the plan so I can reference those for you.
Is that A 1.2 or
I'm looking, let's see, the ones on page L4. So it's very small, so at
Okay.
least on my plan, so sorry for that. So you'll see that they are planning on having a one-way entry in the first driveway when you're coming east on Mission. And then you would loop around the parking lot and exit through the other driveway. And they're planning on doing, I believe it's 90-degree parking. They're also going to be adding landscape strips throughout that to break up the parking lot significantly. Let's see. They are planning on putting a loading space, and the loading space meets code requirements with the height and the width. And they're planning on putting landscaping and permeable pavers throughout the property. And this project will go to the Planning Commission after you review it. They have, sorry, I'm just trying to, what are the highlights? You have color chips. I don't believe you have a color chip for Obstinate Orange. But you have it for the other 3 colors, and the Obstinate Orange is for some of the lettering detail on the monument sign. They are proposing a monument sign out front in one of the landscape planters that front Mission Drive. And then there will be 3, that monument sign meets code requirements. And then there will be 3 flagpoles directly behind it, I believe having the Danish, California, and Italian flags. No?
No, I think it's US.
We do have this.
US,
right?
yes.
We do have this.
You do have that, yeah. Thank you. This is what happens when I
We
depend
don't
on
have
my
to
memory.
Oh, you do have the
2, according to code, 2 flagpoles are allowed, so we're asking you to review and approve the 3rd flagpole. Sorry. And then, as indicated in the staff report, they're not planning on doing any new exterior lighting at this point, but it has been indicated if at any point they plan on changing or adding it, which they will have to the landscape area per the code, or sorry, to the parking lot per the code, they must bring it back to the design review committee.
Okay.
So what we're planning on doing is bringing a much more robust package to you today. We're hoping that the DRC will accept what has been provided before you, and we are scheduling this for the Planning Commission based on what happens here today. The Planning Commission is the final decision maker on this project because it has been vacant for more than 3 years. And we have a change of use from the bank to the market, deli and restaurant. And we are looking forward to your comments and hope we can move forward with this project now.
And then just to understand that the exterior lighting, additional signage, umbrellas, outdoor seating would come back to us at a separate time.
Yes. Anything that's not in this package that they want to do will come back to you.
So this is the architecture, colors, materials, landscaping, but it doesn't, not the
Lighting,
And light-
lighting, okay,
umbrellas, tables.
okay?
And just to be clear, staff recommends we approve as.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have to commend the work that was done over the last 2 months on this project. I think it really addressed particularly Bjorn Hess's comments and on the design. I think it will definitely, everything that they're doing to the building is respectful of the building.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in, because I did make a lot of comments last time, and I see that they've been addressed. So I only have a couple things that stood out to me that are remaining. I think the color, to get rid of the white, there was all that white that's gone, with this brick color, which remedies that. My only thought, I think we still have this panel where the ATM was originally on the north elevation at the front. And I would just suggest that rather it being just a painted stucco panel, that you absolutely do plant it with a, trellis or something, or green wall, something there to soften that difference in material at the front of the building. Just so it's not so obvious that it goes from brick to stucco, painted stucco to brick again. The other thing that I noted, and this is from my background, flagpoles are a big deal. They're believe it or not, a really big discussion point. And there's 2 already, and to add a third is a lot. It's a lot of flagpoles. I would recommend personally that you actually remove one flagpole and you live with one flagpole and you put 3 flags on one flagpole rather than have 3 flagpoles. 3 flagpoles is like in front of a state building. I mean, it's a lot for a small single-story building. That's just, it's not. Yeah, that I'm feel pretty strongly about that.
I would agree with you. I understand why the Italian flag is being promoted, because it's an Italian deli. And I think we're going to be having some conversations coming up here about flags. So maybe this is an item that we even push, just the flagpole. But right now, Italian flags aren't permitted in the TRC, so I wouldn't be inclined to approve it. And I agree with you, a tall flagpole, I might be more willing, like, to be looking at a projecting flag off of a building or something like that might be more appropriate. I'm not necessarily saying that's what I would prefer, but I think I would prefer that more than just like 3 flags. And I agree, a government building makes a lot more sense to have, a real big flag statement, So I agree with you on that, for sure.
On that point, can staff explain why that's, I guess it's being recommended by staff, am I correct in saying it that way? I know it was proposed.
Yeah, good comments. We are going to have the flag debate our discussion here soon.
Okay.
And so your input would be very helpful for us, and we'll be talking about that at the next meeting.
So just to clarify on the flags, what we would really be bringing to you is a conversation from the city attorney's office about current standards and what can or cannot be regulated as a sign for a flag. So that will be coming to you in August. So we're not really looking for comments of what kind of flag we want to allow or not today, because we'll be having that first discussion with you from a legal
Maybe best to
perspective.
defer any action on the flags this time.
Okay.
Rather than approve it, to have it reversed. It sounds like it's something that's in play, one way or
That
the
would be a
other.
good
And I'm not
recommendation.
saying, it may be for the flags or it may not be.
Right.
Well, and I echo my colleagues' sentiments on flags. I would not be advocating for 3 flagpoles. I'm comfortable with 2 flagpoles or 1, but 3 is a lot there at the entrance. Question about the removal of the trees out front. I think there's 3 trees scheduled for removal. And is that kind of the area, I'm not quite sure where they are, but is that kind of the area that now would encompass the proposed flagpoles and monument sign? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's how I interpret it.
Okay. And, because I don't really like seeing trees go away, honestly. Come on up. Yeah, come on up.
I'm not seeing where it says we're removing those trees.
It's on the.
Oh, you're talking,
drawing.
these 3 trees, the
Yeah.
the liquid ambers.
ambers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you why we're moving those, or proposing it, is because the amount of olive trees, that, the idea is to, we're putting in full-size olives that are going in there. And so I don't want the liquid ambers obscuring the olive trees that we're gonna be putting in there.
You've got a olive theme going with your Italian deli there, that those don't harmonize with, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, Esther, what I've done is this, right now, I don't think, I hate sea of asphalts. And currently what we have there is a giant sea of asphalt. And so we're spending a tremendous amount, much more than I really wanted to in the beginning. But I kept going back and forth with the, my landscaper, or my planner, who is a landscape architect. And this is what we've come up with. We lost a tremendous amount of parking, but we're still overparked. But what this does, this enables us to put quite a few trees in the lot to break it up. And the idea is, once again, to kind of make this more of a transition type property now towards the Mission. Mission's got a lot of olives going through, peppers. And so that was the idea. That's why the liquid ambers. I thought you were talking about the ones that were in front of the building itself.
Just those
Yeah,
3 on
the
the,
3 liquid ambers.
on Mission Drive there.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
kind of scraggly looking trees anyway.
Yeah.
They are.
I mean,
They're
yeah.
not the best looking liquid ambers. I agree. I have a
Esther.
hard time, with anything. Yeah.
If you get to the third to the last page, which is L 3.0, you can
Uh-huh.
see
This is-
the replacement trees, and actually it looks
Right.
like there's 3 olives going in right behind where the
Kind
Where
liquid
these,
ambers were,
the-
or almost
this
in the
is,
same place.
this is the
Behind the
demolition plan here,
flagpoles.
you saw that, and that,
Yeah.
those are the 3 coming out.
Yeah, so,
And all the asphalt coming out.
right.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of
Yeah, there
asphalt
sure
coming
is.
out.
And compliments on that. I do have a question. In the layout of the parking lot, I'm basing this on my experiences at New Frontiers, backing out of parking spaces that are laid out like this. Is this the most efficient way? Is there, diagonals? Because if I'm understanding correctly, your entrance to this is a one-way entrance that's close to the building. Your exit
No,
is.
no.
Okay,
The entrance
the
is
exit.
from no, you're coming in from the east,
okay.
okay, and exiting the west towards
Okay.
the building.
All right, so
Coming in
I
and going
had
out.
the wrong way,
Coming in
okay.
and going out.
Yeah.
I am directionally challenged at times, I think that's obvious. Okay, and then the entrance then and the exit, are there going to be requirements for what, can you only turn right when you leave that property? I don't know if Caltrans requires anything there, that sounds like it could be a challenge getting across traffic.
No, well, there's actually, there's a turn lane only, and so a lot of that's gonna be left up to Caltrans. I mean, we won't, I'd love to see that you can only turn right, but if we could turn left, that'd be a great thing. Because once the light goes, it turns red, you got plenty of time to get across the street. But I'm pretty sure this is gonna be Caltrans.
Yeah,
And you-
I presumed as much, and that was why I actually thought that you did it the opposite way, just because it gave you more option to maybe make that left. So it was just my observation on the layout of the parking lot. Compliments on the changes that I see from last time. I see a lot of really positive things going on here that answered a lot of our concerns, a lot with the design, the color palette. I didn't have lots of questions. The sign I had a question on, that is conforming to code, I guess, because we just heard that a sign could be 6 foot, whatever, 6'6", I think is what Aaron said. And that's important because that's a pretty key corner there with that sign.
And assuming there's not another one within 75 feet or another.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And then the trash enclosure wall, the white wall, that's at the back of the trash enclosure that kind of faces the parking lot, if I'm reading this correctly. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then your doors are the gray doors, so the visual from the street is what I'm getting at, because this seems very white for a trash enclosure.
well, I don't really, I mean, we can paint it whatever you color. I mean, it's honestly, I mean, we can paint it.
It's a trash enclosure.
It's a trash enclosure, yeah.
I was just thinking maybe you wanted it to be a little lower key color, you know, maybe even going back to this color, but Jennifer's good at color things in that form.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with that.
The one question I had was in regards to a staff comment about the outdoor dining area facing the parking lot should be 285 square feet, not 585 square feet. I didn't quite understand that. Help me.
So on the plans, it currently has so on A 1.2, you'll see this little map here. It says 575 square feet, and I spoke with or 585 square feet, and I spoke with Lonnie, who's working on this project, and he confirmed that it's actually the 200 and.
Okay.
Okay, that was
Such.
sort of confusing the way it was
Yeah.
worded. I had the same note.
Yeah, it was like, wait a minute, are they asking for more?
Yeah.
No, it's actually correction from what's on
Yes,
there.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's a total of 800 and whatever it was, 550.
55,
Yeah,
yeah.
for both
Okay.
Yeah.
patio spaces, okay. I like the patio spaces. I think we need more outdoor dining patio spaces, just
I agree.
in general.
think
And
it's-
certainly, we've learned a few things from COVID in that regard.
That's a good point.
But we also live in a climate where we can eat outside almost all year round, so,
Yeah, especially in the evenings.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
especially in
think
the
that's
evening,
nice.
exactly.
And since you're adding the restaurant, that will be a very nice space.
Yeah.
Yeah, the restaurant kind of came about when we decided we were gonna lose the one in the hotel.
Yeah, that was
So-
my assumption.
Yeah, I mean, I really hated to lose it too, but it's like, one, they'd be competing with each other, but two, the hotel, after living here for the last year, the way we had it originally designed, it just really wasn't compatible for the area, and I realized that. So, I mean,
Good.
but we will, there's something to be close to your home. So, and that's what people be coming out the front door of that hotel, hopefully to go to this restaurant.
Well, and it'll be the closest restaurant to the hotel too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
got that
exactly.
going.
Where all the micro people can go.
Curiosity, below the cap, this is on materials, another layer of brick and a shiner pattern. I don't know what a shiner pattern is.
So what?
A shiner pattern in brick. I don't know what that means.
You guys are planners. I don't, when my planner talks in our office, I kind of just don't, I drive
Okay.
him crazy with
So you don't
questions.
know
I don't know
either?
what it is either, sorry.
Okay.
Do you know what that is, Lori?
Shiner pattern?
So I got it from the plans, to be honest. But I think it's just, you can see it on page L4.
Where they have the sample.
Yeah. I think it's that you have the layer
Stacked.
of, like, the longer side of the brick on one layer, and then the shorter edge of the brick
Oh,
up
I
on
see.
top.
Right, yeah. that makes
Okay.
sense.
All right.
Can I have one more comment. It looks like you're gonna have those bollards at the front at the sidewalk to remain, and those are, basically that's a banking detail, again, that's like prevents cars from driving through the front of the bank. Any chance that you can remove or reduce those?
Well, I tell you why I like those,
Okay.
because one of the things that, actually by living here, but I was always my kind of vision anyway, is that I'm really hoping that people are gonna, and you guys might not like this idea, but, I mean, I hope you do. I really hope that people lock their bikes to those, because I really
Good.
want cyclists to come into that place.
So they won't if they can lift the bike up over the top of the bollard from,
No, there'll be hooks.
There'll be hooks in it.
okay.
There'll be ramp hooks.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, bikes are more expensive than
Okay.
cars.
I'd be in,
That's a good
I'd be in support
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
that.
say, my husband would never do that.
Yeah.
Unless you have an 80-pound e-bike, then probably nobody's gonna let
Oh,
that.
that actually was gonna be one of my questions,
Can
was
you-
if there was spot for bikes, because e-bikes are being used so much more now.
But you're gonna paint them, you're not gonna leave them bright white,
They're
right?
gonna be red, white, and green, since you're not letting me put an Italian flag up. I'm sorry.
I just put a big X
Perfect.
on 3
Touche.
Touche is right.
And
Good.
the orange,
please.
the other orange color that we're missing, I mean, I think we can probably see it well enough in the
Yeah,
print.
the copy.
But that's the color of the actual Luca and the arches over the logo. It's nice.
Yeah.
And that's the only place that you're using that orange?
Yes.
Is on the exterior, is on that sign,
Signage.
is that correct?
Yeah, and we're not completely married to that. I know some people are, I'm not that into it. I mean, whatever, if it's something that's offensive,
No, that's fine.
I just want it to look Italian.
It's not offensive in a small letter. It's not that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
honestly have a hard time envisioning it, so, yeah. I mean,
I don't know if Brian were here, if he would make a recommendation from a graphic design perspective, but since I'm here and I am a graphic designer, just the suggestion that the Luca could go up a little more, or maybe even be a little bigger, although I don't know, then it maybe probably wouldn't fall within the right, it's, never mind, forget about that.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way that arch comes over, it's nice looking and it looks deli-like, but there's just some kind of weird empty space there above the Luca and under that, so that's just,
We would definitely be hiring somebody of your profession. This is my planner or my architect that did this. And this is just
Conceptual,
And I
highly
would-
conceptual.
then I would be concerned about us giving an approval on that tonight.
Very
If we think
conceptual.
it's gonna be changing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fair point, fair
Yeah.
point.
I think that we can consider approval of the wall,
That's
the
exactly what we're
monument
looking
Right.
sign wall, but
Yeah.
not the sign itself.
Yeah, very good. Okay?
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, is that planned to be lit at night, the monument,
While we're open,
while you're open?
yes,
Okay,
And he's coming back with any lighting.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, yep.
yeah.
Okay?
Make sure it doesn't glow in the dark.
Okay.
I don't think places stay open much after dark here.
Yeah, I know, but yeah.
You could change that.
I would
All
like-
right, are we, any more comments?
Oh, looks like we might have a hand raised.
Oh, yes,
Comments?
please. Oh,
Nancy?
yeah,
Nancy Emerson
yes.
for Save Our Stars. We watch. I'm nervous about the lack of any information about lighting and a kind of implication that maybe nothing was going to be done about the lighting. It just seems to me that if the two large unshielded pole security lights in the parking lots are eliminated, then there will need to be lighting at the entrances to the building and some lighting of some kind on the sign. And it would really help me if I knew that you had put it in the record that it was going to come back to you for parking lot, building, and sign lighting before there is a final approval. Please do that. Thank you.
I'm perfectly fine with that too, Nancy.
Okay, fine. Nancy, thanks for your comments again. We always appreciate your keen observations. We thank you. And they are duly noted and acknowledged by Mr. St. George. Anything else?
So what through this discussion, we would be deferring DRC direction for the sign copy, but the monument itself is acceptable in its proposed location. We will be deferring the discussion on the flags and the flagpoles, and we'll be deferring the discussion on lighting throughout the project. All the other elements that were proposed by the applicant brought here tonight would be available for approval.
Would be approved, and essentially, we're recommending that then to the planning commission, is that correct?
Correct.
And I think it's worth just mentioning on the lighting that we are also not agreeing that the existing lighting can stay, that they're in, as part of the plan, it's not just if you decide to change things out, that there will be a plan to change things
There'll be a
out,
plan,
and that will
yes.
be decided later.
Yeah, so I was thinking that,
It's- we'd have to require
that
later
part of the
approval.
motion needs to incorporate that a lighting plan will come to us to address parking lot, building, and sign lighting.
Do you want to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I move that we approve the proposed architecture, color, materials, and landscaping, the monument sign holder tonight, that applicant returns with a lighting plan for parking lot, building, and signs, the design for the sign on the monument, and flags if so desired. But if so desired, only applies to the flags.
And the flag poles.
Flag poles, excuse me, flag poles, yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded you have that, do you want to make that? She's got the note. That we're going to recommend to the planning commission the approval of the architecture, colors, materials, landscaping, and sign holder, but we'll be considering later deferring till later the actual design of the monument sign, the flagpole, and then the comprehensive, I'll call it rather than all the details, but the comprehensive light plan.
Well, and that applicant will return with a comprehensive
Yes,
lighting plan.
okay. Understood?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. 4-0, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is that, just curious, is that a 4-0 or is that a 4 with one absent?
One absent.
Or-
4-0 is the correct.
4-0,
Okay.
so, yeah, it's a little, sometimes because
Yeah.
when there's, last time I think there was not only a recusal, but there was an abstention.
Right, right,
And so somebody here, but they don't vote.
right.
Anyway, okay, absent, is there any, we do have a couple things. We want to make sure there's opportunities for staff, any staff comments to.
Thank you,
for the
all
rest
in
of
the,
the-
Thank you.
in the room for
Yeah.
sticking in through all that.
Just to bring you up to speed on some of the projects that we're working on, we are going through the full review of the senior center project that will be on your next agenda.
Okay,
They did submit a full package, and we're going through that analysis right now. There are 2 signs that will be coming to your next meeting. I think that's it for now, for the next DRC meeting. And so it'll be a lighter meeting, hopefully.
okay.
And flagpole
I'm
poles.
going to be absent in August. I'm out of town.
Okay.
And flagpole policy is coming for discussion in August as well.
My daughter's.
Yes, that should be in August, correct.
Okay. Are there any other items for, any other committee member comments, I guess, before city staff comments? Any, I think,
No, just
well,
that I'll
you
be
just made
absent.
your comment, I guess,
Yeah,
about your
yeah.
plans for next month.
Yep.
No, as far as around the community, I just keep coming back to the compliance officer. I've had, people still continue to reach out to me, and it's nice to be able to say that some of them are being addressed, such as the craft house today. There are, I was brought to my attention that there are, I think there are fluorescent light signs, open signs over on the building that, I can't remember the name of the business that's housed at the corner of Denmarket Square, the antique kind of
Oh.
building. There's they have two of those signs in their windows there, I was told.
Yeah, and the only comment I have that I received at the Wednesday concerts was, there's a, I don't know what the sculpture is, but it's sort of like a Stonehenge, mini
Oh, that's a Viking monument.
Viking monument
Yeah.
with the plaque and everything around it. Thank you for coming. And right exactly next to it, this is on the brand-new plaza thing, right exactly, sort of right abutting it or whatever, is a new trash can. They thought that there should be a zone of exclusion around the monument that excluded, is a small little deal, but that's what.
Maybe you have some pull with someone in the city to help remedy that, I don't know.
But thanks for all your time tonight, the staff's efforts
Yeah.
on these are big issues, and, I think all your comments, I guess I could say ladies, without fear of contradiction here, we're all
Yes.
without Brian, but thanks for all your expertise to apply in this, and little by little, we're making a difference around town. I think that's good.
When we get a big agenda, I don't think it's lost on any of us that somebody had to put that together, so thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
And the amount of time and energy it takes, because
Boy,
it
no
sure
kidding.
took a long time getting ready, so we know it must
Yeah,
have
that's
taken a
right.
really long time.
That's
I
right.
think what is noticeable too, to me, is that there is not much community input on these projects
which is
at these
a
meetings,
good
which
sign.
I took as a positive, because it sounds as though the applicants are, especially for these key projects, that, previously there would have been
Yeah.
a large participation. And in a way, I wish there was a little bit more
Yeah.
participation, but there's been some very valuable comments, and I take that
They
as a
trust
positive.
us to make the comments now.
Yeah.
I definitely would interpret it that way.
And I do want to extend our appreciation for the subcommittee work. We could be having multiple meetings on some of these projects if we just did it here.
Yes.
Thanks
And-
for noting that.
Yeah.
That's all of you who've done that, served it. I think it's a little model we've developed, but I think it's really been very, very effective without relinquishing
Yeah.
responsibilities, if you will. But it troubles some of our members to have to
Thank you.
arrange that. So that's good.
I think it's also fills in some voids or some areas that aren't fully defined, or there's sometimes not, clarity, because of, we're all waiting for new design guidelines and, the ratification of those that will come after the general plan is finalized.
One comment that, I have, it relates partly to the house up on Laurel, but also to the fence line, on the Old Mission Road. And it happens to be the same architect. But I know we asked, was there conversation with the neighbors? And was there, an effort to share with the neighbors? And my sense was that in both of those cases, there really wasn't. I mean, I remember on the Laurel case, it was, 18 years ago when we first presented it, we talked to the neighbors, but not since. And I think that contributed to the challenges. And then the other thing was on the Old Mission Road, it was like they were commenting on their observations as they occurred to them. I mean, the neighbor was, that, and there's got to be a requirement for them to basically, and that's something important, particularly when staff are making choices, and that's also part of it, making sure that the neighbors, the voters, know, what issues are being considered. That's all. I mean, I don't know.
I think especially, and I apologize, Pat, I
No,
interrupted you
that's-
there. I think in particular when it's kind of a variance from what is standard, because a 6-foot fence with just a gate that's a solid gate along a long stretch of road wouldn't be something that would be typically approved. So I think I'd like to just really urge staff that if it varies from what's kind of SOP, then it better to bring it to us, and not because we're so smart at all this, but rather that it also notifies the public as to what's occurring.
And maybe, and I don't know if this is something, as something in a general plan update might be in order, but I realize that the reason why neighbors don't get notified is because it's residential, and that's not a requirement. You would get notified if you were in a commercial zone and your home was nearby, and a bit, and maybe the solution to that would be that if a project is coming up on, that has special circumstances, so it is coming before the design review board, that there is a notification. I mean, I know that's not written into the code, and maybe that's just a standard thing across the lands, and it can't be changed. But it seems to me that if there's something coming up for special review, that it would be nice that the people in the area who are going to be the most affected by that would be notified. Because I think a lot of people don't know that that these things are being seen. They're not as in tune to the DRC as they are to the city council or to the planning commission.
I think it's a high burden of expectation.
Yeah.
I would love to see that could work, but I think in particular, I think the way that is, that's great if you can do that. I advocate for that. But once it's coming in front of us, it is on the public record. It is out there for public viewing. And that doesn't occur when it's just, when it's handled over the counter.
Right.
On the flip side of that, I respect that there are things that need to be handled over the counter that we don't need to address, nor do we really want to address. I think that at the time when, if there's any question as to how it fits into the current codes and guidelines, if it deviates at all from that, it's just better to come before us. And maybe I'll regret saying this.
Yeah, it is a best practice actually to share things with the community, and it reduces friction with the community.
Yes.
So in terms of that sort of relationship that we have in town with people having a voice, and you already have established a protocol and a culture of having open communication with people, residents of the community, it just makes sense. It follows on from there. So
Yes.
I think anything like, there's only a handful of properties that are even still able to be developed, which is not a huge burden. And then if you were talking about a whole tear down of something, and you were going to strip something all the way down to the studs, and something like that would be significant, might be of a bar that you would want to share. But I think it's more in line with how you behave to share that information.
And that's why I say when it comes to us, that immediately puts it in front of the public.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also may be something to really keep in mind as we prepare the general plan. That we set up systems of transparency, so people have an opportunity to find out what it is. If we have, I know you've had a newsletter, or I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Or a blanket emailing, or I'm not sure what it is, but some kind of commitment to transparency that we just have to do. I mean, that's, but I think that notification, just,
If I
we're
may.
not into killing projects, but we want to make sure that they don't become more complicated than they need to be.
Right, so I think just to make some comments back on that, obviously when we deal with projects and approval of projects, we look at the existing codes and that fine balance between what's regulated by code, which we can clearly regulate, and things that are really not truly regulated, at which point it becomes more challenging for staff or anyone to place those commitments onto a project. I do agree that there is a provision in the code that allows city manager, planning manager to bring issues to the DRC, which is a nice tool to have. So we can definitely work internally on, those triggers and when a project is good, and within the purview of you taking some kind of action to bring to you. So we'll continue to work on that. The general plan will be the bigger policies. After that will come some cleanup on the zoning. So through those policies and then the zoning, hopefully we'll get this to the right place. But
Yeah, and there's nothing like 20/20 hindsight, so I mean, a lot of times, you have to make your choices and do your thing and get stuff done, but anyway, we appreciate so much all your hard
Yeah.
work, all four of you do a great job.
And good to know
Appreciate
going
it.
forward, so thanks for all the work.
thank you,
Okay,
committee.
meeting adjourned. Laser, thank you.